Chapter 1060. At the Tang family's courtyard in the capital, after a set of punching technique, Tang Yunhai retracted his fists and stood up straight. His posture was like a tall and straight old pine tree, vigorous and powerful. Zhang Yumei stepped forward and handed him a towel with a smile on her face. "Dad, you don't look old at all. I'm afraid that Tianlong and I are not your match even if we join hands. You only know how to make this old man happy. I know my body well. I have to admit that I'm getting old. Now I'm out of breath after a set of punching technique. I'm no longer as strong as I was in the past." Tang Yunhai sighed. His eyes then shifted to Tang Yuyan, who was in a daze at the side. Tang Yuyan sat on a stool with her hands supporting her cheeks. Her eyes were dull, and no one knew what she was thinking. "Yuyan, don't you have something to tell your grandpa?" Zhang Yumei said. "Your grandpa has finished his practice. You can tell him now." Tang Yuyan came out from her daze. She got up and walked over. "Grandpa, I'm going to Charlotte's house for dinner tonight." "You're going to his house for dinner?" Tang Yunhai's face suddenly turned ugly. "Why are you going to his house for dinner? Is he the one who invited you?" "He invited me. It's just a simple meal," said Tang Yuyan. "You're not allowed to go," said Tang Yunhai with a stern tone. "Why?" Tang Yuyan looked a bit unconvinced. "Because he's a married man. Because he made our Tang family lose face. Aren't these reasons enough? Can't they make you sober up?" Tang Yunhai was furious. Tang Yuyan's lips moved, seemingly wanting to defend herself. But under Tang Yunhai's glaring eyes, she was a bit timid and couldn't say anything. The prestige that Tang Yunhai had built up in her heart for more than 20 years was not something that could be easily toppled. When Tang Yunhai was angry, she would feel a kind of fear from the bottom of her heart, and then she would obey. "Yu Yan, your grandpa doesn't want you to go for your own good," said Zhang Yumei. "Think about it, how Xia Lei treated you back then, didn't you mind it at all? He's already a man with 4 women, but he's still not satisfied and still wants to provoke you. Even I regret having misjudged a person like him." Tang Yuyan smiled bitterly. "Mom, a man like him can get any woman he wants. Even a woman like Fan Fan was willing to follow him and share him with other women. Wasn't this enough to explain the problem? It wasn't him who hired me, it was me." "Enough!" Tang Yunhai fiercely said. "You're not allowed to say such words. Don't you think our Tang family has lost enough face because of him?" Tang Yuyan avoids Tang Yunhai's stern eyes. Zhang Yumei continued to play the good cop. "Yu Yan, I know you like him, and he does have some qualities that make him likable. But he's married. He has 4 pregnant women at home. Don't you think his life is a mess? Don't think about him. He's not the only excellent man in the world. You should set your sights further. I'll find you a good man who can match you in all aspects, okay? I think leading Cadre Wang's child is good. He just came back from studying in the United States." "Enough. I don't want to hear it." Tang Yuyan suddenly lost control of her emotions. "I don't want anyone except Charlotte. You." Zhang Yumei didn't have Tang Yunhai's majesty and boldness. She looked at Tang Yunhai for help. Tang Yunhai coldly looked at Tang Yuyan. Tang Yuyan seemed to throw caution to the wind. "Mom, you used to matchmake me with Charlotte and said that he's a good man. But now that he's married to another woman, he's nothing. I don't think it's because of how many women he has, but because he can no longer be the son-in-law of the Tang family. Am I right?" She was right. However, as soon as she finished speaking, Tang Yunhai slapped her in the face. Slap. A crisp sound was heard. A few finger marks appeared on Tang Yuyan's face. She covered her face and didn't say anything. Tang Yunhai angrily rebuked. "You must remember that you're a woman of the Tang family. No matter what you do, you must think about the Tang family who gave birth to you and raised you. I admit that Xia Lei is indeed a rare man in this world. I've never seen a man more outstanding than him, but it's already impossible for the 2 of you to be together. Are the women of the Tang family going to be like those 4 women who don't have a title and follow him? You can be with him if you let him divorce those 4 women and let him be the son-in-law of the Tang family. Then, I'll agree to let you be with him. Tang Yuyan bitterly smiled. Is that possible? Impossible? Tang Yunhai said, then you must listen to your mom's arrangement. I don't want to. Tang Yuyan turned around and walked away. Stop. Tang Yunhai angrily said. Not only did Tang Yuyan not stop, but she walked faster. You! Tang Yunhai was so angry that he glared at her. Calm down, Dad. I know Yuyan's temper. She'll be fine after a while. I'll talk to her and ask her to apologize to you, said Zhang Yumei. She's really spoiled by you, Tang Yunhai said angrily. At this time, Tang Buchuan came over. Grandpa, Mom. Buchuan, you came just in time. Watch your sister and don't let her go out. I want to see how she can meet that bastard. Tang Yunhai was still angry. Grandpa, I'm afraid. Tang Buchuan said. What do you want to say? Tang Yunhai frowned. If you have something to say, just spit it out. Why are you hesitating? All right. Tang Buchuan sighed. The expert I hired has come out with the result today. What's the result? Tang Yunhai anxiously said. Quickly say it. It failed. Tang Yunhai was stunned. How is that possible? Tang Buchuan smiled bitterly. All the samples taken from Charlotte are dead, and they killed each other. It's impossible for us to get his genes and breed a superchild of our Tang family. That's not scientific. All 4 women in his family are pregnant. Aren't they his? Zhang Yumei was also surprised. Tang Buchuan said, Mom, what are you talking about? How can they not be his? Among the 4 women around him, except for his childhood sweetheart Jiang Rui, who is a little weak, the other 3 are all arrogant women. Your son actually likes Long Bing very much, but she hasn't given me a chance all these years. Charlotte can solve her problem easily. She loves her job in 101 floors more than her life, but Charlotte, who is pregnant, asked her to resign to be a full-time wife, so she resigned. Isn't that enough to solve the problem? But why are the samples taken from him dead? Zhang Yumei couldn't figure it out. Tang Buchuan shrugged. I don't know. I'm afraid we have to ask the women around him about it. Dad, what do you think? Zhang Yumei looked at Tang Yunhai and asked. Tang Yunhai was silent for a moment. I thought we didn't need Yu Yan to contact that kid anymore. It seems that we still have to let her do it. That American woman named Fossen is right. Charlotte is an existence that transcends the evolution of human beings. His genes have inestimable value. If we get Charlotte's genes, then our Tang family will gain great benefits in 20 years. I don't need to teach you what to do, right? Zhang Yumei then said, I'm going to talk to Yu Yan now and ask her to go to Charlotte's house for dinner. At the same time, another scene was happening in Peace Residence. Honey, I want sweet and sour pork ribs and green pepper scrambled eggs. Jiang Rui's voice was heard. Honey, I want vinegar fish and grilled fish. Liang Xiao's voice was heard. Honey, I want French steak and foie gras. Fan Fan's voice was heard. Honey, I'll order an Italian pizza and spaghetti. And a steamed beef. Long Bing's voice was heard. Are you pigs? Why are you eating so much? Charlotte's voice was heard. Hit him. How dare you call us pigs? Do you want to sleep on the sofa? You're so annoying. Go away. Your mouth is so oily. Don't kiss me. The kitchen was in chaos. There were fists flying around and there were palms and lips being taken advantage of. When Charlotte finished cooking, Tang Yuyan came with 4 gifts. Each of the 4 women with big bellies had a gift. Only Charlotte didn't get one. Charlotte was curious, but he didn't ask. 5 women and 1 man sat around the table. The atmosphere was not relaxed at all. The 4 women with big bellies thought that Tang Yuyan was going to bring up the matter of joining the organization that they were worried about, but she didn't mention it at all. The topics they talked about during the dinner were all unimportant topics, such as the current fashion styles, which brands of cosmetics were good or which movies were good and so on. This situation made the four women with big bellies, who had been preparing for a long time, a little confused. But they gradually realized that Tang Yuyan was in a low mood today. She had been pretending to be happy. "Yuyan, are you okay?" Long Bing asked when they were almost done eating. "I'm fine. What can happen to me? I'm so happy to see your family so happy and happy. I'm very happy. I'm fine," Tang Yuyan said with a smile. "If you have something on your mind and need to talk to someone, you can come to me at any time. I have nothing to do now," Long Bing said. Tang Yuyan nodded. "Yuyan, follow me to the study. I'll give it to you," Charlotte said. "Well, okay." Tang Yuyan and Charlotte didn't talk much tonight. Charlotte took Tang Yuyan to the study. The four women with big bellies also began their discussion. "What's wrong with Tang Yuyan today? It doesn't feel like her," Fanfan said. "I have the same feeling. She obviously has something on her mind. She's not happy at all. But she still pretends to be happy," Jiang Rui said. "Why don't we follow her and see what she's talking about with the man in our family?" Liang Xiao said. Long Bing said, "Forget it. I can guess a little. It must be because of her family. Let's not worry about it." In the study, Charlotte handed an encrypted USB to Tang Yuyan. "There's a list in the USB. You can take it back and have a look." Tang Yuyan suddenly threw herself into Charlotte's arms. She could no longer control her emotions. Tears suddenly came out. "I'm so tired." Charlotte didn't push her away. He could feel her sadness. "I don't want to go on like this. If I go on like this, I'll collapse. Lazy, give me a promise. How long do I have to wait for you?" Tang Yuyan laid her cards on the table. Charlotte was silent for a moment before he said, "Do you really want to wait for me? Do you think I'm lying to you?" Tang Yuyan looked at Charlotte with tears in her eyes. Charlotte nodded. "If you really want to wait for me, then give me another 2 years, okay?" 2 years. "Yes, 2 years. Well, I'll wait for you for 2 years. After 2 years, no matter how many women you have around you, I'll marry you." With that, Tang Yuyan suddenly bit Charlotte's shoulder. Charlotte frowned. She bit him hard. It was very painful. Tang Yuyan let go of Charlotte and turned to leave. Charlotte watched her leave. His heart was filled with bitterness. 2 years? I may not be in this world anymore. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. Chapter 1061. The CIA's Jingdu intelligence station had been destroyed, but Rema Group's new material workshop and drone workshop had broken ground overnight. This meant that the dark horse of the military, Rema Group, had officially entered the field of aerial combat. When Charlotte returned from Israel, he had promised that Rema Group would have its own drones and the world's leading aviation materials before the 1st of June. For this promise, all the Thunder Horse people were working hard. Sylvia and Anina seemed to be the busiest too. As the chief engineer of Rema Group and the most important leader of the machinists, they had to complete the processing of the ultra-precision parts and the manufacturing of the core equipment. Crackle, 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 firecrackers were set off at the construction sites of the 2 new workshops, and the sound of gongs and drums filled the air. Chinese people are so weird. Why do they have to set off firecrackers? Also, their instruments are so simple. It's just noise, and there's no musical beauty. Sylvia stopped what she was doing and glanced in the direction of the new workshop. There was a ribbon-cutting ceremony going on there. Important leaders, military representatives, and a large group of important people were present. It was a grand scene, but she and Anina didn't want to waste time on it. Anina used the towel draped over her shoulder to wipe her sweat. She didn't even look in that direction. She didn't even notice what Sylvia had said, and was still engrossed in assembling a piece of core equipment. "Hey, Anina, I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me?" Sylvia grabbed the towel off her shoulder and threw it at Anina. Anina only stopped what she was doing when Sylvia's towel hit her face. She looked at Sylvia in confusion. What are you doing? I'm talking about Lucas' ribbon-cutting ceremony. Firecrackers, gongs and drums. His taste is so low. The noise he's making over there is making me unable to work. Anina shrugged. This is their culture. I don't think there's a problem. Okay, their culture. Let's not talk about their culture. How about we talk about his wives? Sylvia said. Anina said, he has 4 wives. Who do you want to talk about? All 4 of his wives are pregnant, and it's getting closer and closer to the due date. Don't you think he should consider our feelings? I hate the toys you bought, Sylvia said. Anina was speechless. Sylvia sighed. Anina, I miss home. We don't have any friends here, and I don't quite fit in with their culture. Tell me the truth, do you miss home? Anina nodded. I miss home, but what? We're doing well here. Lucas has given us everything. We can't leave him when he needs us the most. We can work miracles with him. If we leave him and go back to Germany, we'll be the same as before. Do you want that? All right, let's get back to work. Sylvia didn't want to continue the conversation. At this moment, a familiar figure appeared at the door and walked in. Seeing his face, Anina stood up and said excitedly, Lucas, aren't you hosting the ribbon-cutting ceremony? Why are you here? Charlotte walked towards the 2 German women with a smile on his face. That's my brother-in-law. From now on, I'll be working with you until we can produce new materials and drones. Wow. Anina went up to Charlotte and hugged him. Her plump lips pressed onto Charlotte's cheek. Her lips moved away, and a bright red lipstick mark appeared on Charlotte's cheek. Sylvia came over as well. Lucas, you said your brother-in-law just now. Do you mean you'll let your brother-in-law pretend to be you to host the ribbon-cutting ceremony? Charlotte smiled. Yes. From today onwards, when you see me in work clothes, it'll be me. When you see me in a suit, it won't be me. It'll be Ryu Youngnam. Anina didn't let go of Charlotte. Just as she was about to kiss Charlotte's other cheek, Sylvia suddenly kicked her from behind. Only then did she react and let go of Charlotte. Lucas, I've missed you so much. The moment Anina let go of Charlotte, Sylvia, with her big breasts and plump buttocks, took over her spot. She gave Charlotte a passionate hug and a kiss. With a soft sound, a bright red lipstick mark appeared on Charlotte's other cheek. Charlotte endured the awkwardness and said with a smile, I've been too busy recently and haven't been able to spend more time with you. I'm really sorry. Sylvia's cherry lips blocked his, and his words were cut off. How can you make irresponsible remarks about the desire and passion that has been accumulating for so long? Charlotte could reject Tang Yuyan and Shintu Tianyin, but he couldn't reject the 2 German women. No matter what he did, he didn't need to take responsibility. Another reason was that the reason the 2 German women were still at Rema Group wasn't because of the sky-high salary he offered, but because of him. If he didn't even give them a little benefit and chilled their hearts, would they still work for him so loyally? Today is a good day for me, and I want to make it a good day for you too, Charlotte quickly said when Sylvia finally let go of him. Our good day? Lucas, what do you mean? Sylvia looked at Charlotte curiously. Charlotte said, I've decided. From this month onwards, your wages will be paid in euros. You want to pay our wages in euros? Anina was very surprised. She seemed to think she heard wrong. Yes, your wages will be paid in euros in the future, Charlotte said. Sylvia said with a smile, Anina, you idiot. Lucas must be talking about euros after the exchange rate. No. Charlotte said, it's directly in euros. Your current salary is 500,000 renminbi, and I'll double it to 1 million euros. Wait. Anina was stunned. You mean you're going to give us an annual salary of 12 million euros? Yes, Charlotte said with a smile. You've been working with me all this time, but you haven't earned much. In the past it was because of the lack of funds, but now that I have money, of course I'll give you a raise. With an annual salary of 12 million euros, you'll be able to enjoy the world after 2 years of hard work. At that time, if your assets haven't reached 100 million euros, I'll give you 100 million euros. Anina and Sylvia were dumbfounded. 100 million euros was almost unimaginable in Europe, especially for office workers like them. Charlotte laughed. What's with your expressions? I'm giving you a raise. Don't you have a smile on your face? Sylvia suddenly understood something and said, Lucas, you were eavesdropping on my conversation with Anina, weren't you? No, why would I eavesdrop on your conversation with Anina? Am I such a bored person? Charlotte said, but in his heart, he knew very well what was going on. Ryu Youngnam had pretended to be him to host the ribbon-cutting ceremony and entertain various guests. He had come to the workshop early in the morning and happened to hear the conversation between the 2 female German engineers. The 2 female engineers were homesick and couldn't adapt to life in China. This was a very serious problem for Rema Group, because both Anina and Sylvia's roles in Rema Group were irreplaceable. Anina was the core of the vehicle workshop, and Sylvia was the best machinist in the world. Under the premise of using the Thunder Dragon intelligent lathe, she was the only one who could replace him. Without Sylvia, all the work of processing the ultra-precision parts would fall to him, and he simply didn't have the time. Thus, he had to keep these 2 female engineers no matter what, even if it meant sacrificing his looks. You must have eavesdropped on our conversation, Lucas. You lied to us. Sylvia was very sure that he had discovered Charlotte's secret. I really didn't. Anina, do you believe what I said? Charlotte looked at the more honest Anina and asked. Anina said, no. Charlotte was speechless. Lucas, you don't have to give us so much money. You know that we're not here to earn your money. We're here because of you, Anina said, a trace of sadness in her blue eyes. Yes, Sylvia said. Sylvia said, your wives are watching you too closely. You don't even have the chance to come and find us. Charlotte smiled bitterly. I have no choice. I have too many things to do, excuses, Sylvia said. Sylvia said, unless you stay and work overtime with us tonight, we'll forgive you and accept your conditions. Raising someone's salary by tens of millions of euros, but still depending on their mood before they could accept it. Charlotte felt that as a boss, he really lacked a bit of prestige in front of these 2 German women. Do you agree or not? If not, we'll go back to Germany for the holidays, Sylvia said. Charlotte braced himself and said, all right, I agree. I'll stay and work overtime with you tonight. No, 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 not just tonight, Anina said. Tomorrow night too, and the night after that. Before the new material workshop and the drone workshop are completed, you have to work overtime with us at least 2 nights a week. Yes, that's it. If you don't agree to our conditions, we'll go back to Germany for the holidays, Sylvia said. Holidays, Anina added. Charlotte didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He actually knew very well that even if he didn't agree to their conditions, they wouldn't go back to Germany for the holidays. They were only doing this because they wanted him to spend more time with them, and also because they wanted to take revenge on him for neglecting them during this period of time. This kind of revenge was actually sexy, sweet, and tempting. Most men would be happy to do it, but they couldn't. All right, I agree to your conditions. I'll work overtime with you at least 2 nights a week. That should be fine, right? Charlotte agreed. If he wanted these 2 German cows to produce milk, he would have to feed them grass, and he would be the one holding the grass. What was the point of working overtime? He didn't need to think to know that it definitely wasn't a proper job. With their goal achieved, the 2 German women were in a better mood, and their work efficiency was noticeably faster. For them, their salary had increased tenfold, and they had an annual income of tens of millions of euros. They had both money and men. It could be said that they had both money and sex. Today was truly a good day for them. Charlotte quickly immersed himself in his work. He only needed to process the core component. Lucas, you're sweating. Let me wipe it for you. After a while, Anina came to Charlotte's side and wiped his sweat. Her voluptuous upper body pressed against Charlotte's chest without any hesitation. Her hand and the towel cooperated to wipe the sweat off Charlotte's face, but her voluptuous body and clothes cooperated to create sweat for Charlotte. Lucas, your pants are dirty. Look at you. Be careful. After a while, Sylvia came over and reached out to pat the dust off Charlotte's pants. She patted Charlotte's but loudly. At first, Charlotte was still able to maintain his composure, but soon, he couldn't control himself. Although he didn't reach out his hands or feet, his left and right eyes didn't hold back. When his left and right eyes were paired, it was definitely gangster mode. Bust size 90 centimeters, waist size 60 centimeters, hip size 89 centimeters, leg length 116 centimeters. 4,189 strands. Sylvia has 101 strands more than Anina. This was only a portion of the gangster's data. When men and women work together, it wouldn't be tiring. Chapter 1062. Rema Group upgraded again. The new material workshop and drone workshop were built at a rapid pace. Not only was the construction company's progress fast, but the Rema Group's own part, which was the transformation and assembly of equipment and the construction of production lines, was also progressing at a rapid pace. Based on the current momentum, Rema Group would produce its own aviation materials and new drones before the June 1st promised by Charlotte. The reason why it was so fast was not only because the funds were in place and the unity of Rema Group, but also because of the intervention of the state. With the push of the state, Rema Group couldn't slow down even if they wanted to. On the other hand, the state also increased the level of personal protection for Rema Group and Charlotte. Rema Group stationed a large number of elite special forces around the Peace residence, and added 2 sets of anti-aircraft missiles. With such a level of security, unless they sent an army to attack, it would be impossible to send assassins, no matter how powerful they were. Time passed like this day by day. 3 months later. In Israel, a wasteland southeast of Jerusha. Up. An Israeli engineer directed a crane to lift the statue of the faceless warrior that was buried in the rocks. In an open space behind the crane, there were 3 black faceless warrior statues, as well as countless skull fragments, and a relatively intact skull that survived. It's been 3 months and we finally excavated this place. Israel's Mossad's senior intelligence officer, Kearns, sighed. Mr. Kearns, what's the point of excavating these things? Charlotte stole the most important thing from here, and these are just things he threw away because he didn't like them. Yen-Fo said, so, I don't think there's anything to be happy about. Mr. Yen, are you mocking us? The corner of Kearns' mouth curled into a cold smile. Then should I also mock your actions in the capital of Hua Nation? I heard that the CIB's intelligence station in the capital was wiped out by China's Innings 101. Your FA organization used soldiers and 500 kilograms of explosives, but not even a single China ant was killed. Don't you think you're funnier and more deserving of sympathy? Yen-Fo shrugged. Mr. Kearns, I didn't come to Israel to mock you. Charlotte was the only person in the world who had surpassed the evolution of the entire human race. To describe him with a character that Americans loved the most, it would be Superman. Do you think you can succeed so easily against a superhuman existence? Cohen asked, then what is your purpose in coming to Israel? Yen-Fo said, I want to take these 4 faceless warrior statues back, as well as some skulls and other cultural relics. Who do you think you are? To actually make such a request of me? Kearns' expression immediately darkened. This is not my idea, this is Mr. Williams' idea. Of course, if you think Mr. Williams isn't important enough, then this is President Bajoma's idea. Yen-Fo said unhurriedly, this is a national exchange between the United States and Israel. We're just running errands for those big shots. Mr. Kearns, you should understand what I mean, right? What he meant was very simple. If I want to take the statues and cultural relics, you can't stop me. Kearns sneered. What an American style. Since Mr. Williams and President Bajoma have come forward, of course I can't stop you from shipping the statues to the United States. But I want to know why the Americans are shipping these stones to the United States. Mr. Kearns, I can't answer this question. I said I'm just an errand boy. But there's someone who can answer your question. I'll introduce you to him now. Yenfo said. He waved to a group of people standing beside a statue and said loudly, Mr. Alec, please come over. Mr. Kearns wants to talk to you. A bald white man walked over. He was about 60 years old and had a slightly thin face. His head and chin were shaved smooth, making his head look like a shelled egg. He was tall and thin, giving people a feeling that he was too weak to stand up to the wind. But his eyes were very special. They were deep and full of wisdom, leaving a deep impression on people at first glance. Before the old American man called Alec could walk over, Kearns asked, Who is he? CIA. Or is he a cabinet member? Yenfo said, Neither. He's the head of the AE Research Center, America's most outstanding bioengineer. So it's him. Kearns seemed to understand a lot of things in an instant. Back then, he was the one who took the medicine in the amber to the AE Research Center for research. He lost the medicine and created a superhuman like Charlotte. And now, Charlotte is threatening the national interests of the United States and even the current structure of the world. Isn't he shooting himself in the foot? Yenfo just listened and didn't say anything. The Israelis had complaints about the AE Research Center, and he could completely understand. If that piece of amber had been left in Israel and studied by Israeli scientists, there might not have been a problem with Charlotte, and then the things that had happened would not have happened. But time would not go back. Alec walked over and took the initiative to shake hands with Kearns. Then he introduced himself. My name is Alec. I'm in the field of biological research. Mr. Kearns, nice to meet you. Kearns shook hands with Alec and said politely, Mr. Alec, nice to meet you too. I'm a very direct person, so I'll just say it directly. You want to transport these statues back to the United States. What do you want to do? Mr. Kearns, although your question is beyond your authority, I'm still willing to tell you. These statues are made of extraordinary materials, and they themselves have research value, so we want to transport them back to the United States for research. Of course, all the research results will be shared with Israel. Israel is the United States' ally in the Middle East. In this matter, our interests are the same. Alec's answer was very skillful. It made people feel comfortable listening to it, but it didn't solve the actual problem. Kearns frowned. Mr. Alec, you rushed here from the United States to take the statues away. You must know something and have a specific research direction. As an ally, you're not even willing to share this information with us? It's not that we're not willing, Mr. Kearns. It's just that you don't have enough authority. Your boss and the Israeli higher-ups definitely know. If you really want to know, I suggest you go through other channels, Alec said. Kearns's mood suddenly became bad. He really wanted to know what the Americans were doing by transporting these statues back to the United States, but the other party obviously didn't care about him, an intelligence officer. At this moment, one of Alec's assistants suddenly fell to the ground. A group of experts and attendants from the United States suddenly panicked. Some were calling for help, some took out their phones to call the emergency number, and there were even people who knew about first aid who were trying to save someone. Yenfo, Alec, and Kearns quickly ran over. The three of them quickly understood the situation. An American archaeologist with a history of heart disease had a heart attack and collapsed to the ground. He had a pacemaker installed in his heart, but for some reason, the pacemaker suddenly failed. What's going on? An American staff member who was holding a phone to make a call had a look of surprise. It was fine before, why did there suddenly be no signal? My phone has no signal either. What's going on? Why is my watch wrong? It's actually 2 in the morning. The scene was chaotic. In the midst of the chaos, the unlucky archaeologist with a heart attack stopped breathing. What's going on? Someone suddenly pointed to the sky in the east. Everyone's eyes were focused on the sky. A dark cloud was quickly moving in this direction, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Israel was a dry place with little rain. It rarely rained once or twice a year, and a storm like this almost never happened. But now, under the thick rain cloud, the dry Israel seemed to have moved to the Amazon basin as a rainstorm came out of nowhere. Crackle! The dark cloud pressed down, and a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Raindrops the size of beans fell from the sky, blocking everyone's vision in the blink of an eye. Bang! The steel rope on the crane suddenly broke, and the statue of the faceless warrior that had been lifted off the ground fell. The Israeli engineer commanding the crane didn't even have time to react before the statue of the faceless warrior, which weighed at least 2 tons, smashed into his body. He was instantly flattened, and the thickness of his head was only the thickness of a pancake. Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere, but they were quickly washed away by the rain. Gather! Gather! An engineer commander held a communicator and gave the order to gather, but his voice couldn't be heard at all. The communicator was malfunctioning. What is that? In the storm, someone suddenly shouted in English. It was an archaeologist from the United States. Yenfo followed the direction of his finger and froze with just a glance. In the storm, lightning, and thunder, about 50 meters away, there seemed to be a woman walking in this direction. She was wearing very strange clothes. The clothes were soaked by the rain and stuck to her body, so she looked like a naked body. He opened his eyes wide, trying to see her face clearly, but he couldn't. The rain was too heavy. Is that a woman? Someone also noticed. Yes, it's a woman. Why is she here? Hey, who are you? Someone tried to talk to the woman. What does she want? Bang, bang, bang. An Israeli engineer fired into the sky. Don't shoot, bastard! Kearns roared. No one fired anymore, but the woman in the middle of the storm suddenly disappeared. The storm lasted for half an hour before it ended. The sky suddenly cleared up and the sun shone brightly. Everything that had happened just now was like an illusion. There are words there. An engineer suddenly pointed at a statue and said. Yenfo, Kearns, and Alec ran over. On the statue there was an English sentence written in blood, under the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Chapter 1063. In 3 months, Rema Group's new material workshop and drone workshop rose from the ground. Every day, a large group of reporters waited outside the gate of Rema Group, hoping to get news clues and materials, but no one succeeded. The employees who entered and exited the factory were very quiet. No matter what benefits the reporters offered, they would not talk about the factory. China's reporters were not the only ones waiting outside the gate of Rema Group. There were also reporters from the United States, Europe, Japan, and India. More than 3 months ago, Charlotte had returned from Israel and promised in front of the reporters that he would produce the world's most advanced aviation materials and drones on June 1st. There was still half a month before that time, but the Rema Group and Charlotte's every move had already affected the nerves of many countries and people. These foreign reporters were not all reporters. There were also spies and intelligence personnel from the United States, Japan, Europe, and India. They were eager to get the most valuable information, but they did not dare to act rashly. Even though they knew that spies and intelligence personnel were mixed in with these reporters, China's 101 innings did not care. However, within Rema Group, there were many people who worked in politics who specially gave ideological and political lessons to the employees of Rema Group, constantly reminding the employees of Rema Group not to make mistakes and to cherish everything they had now. On one side was the pond that they were trying to find ways to control, while on the other side, the periphery was unguarded, putting on a posture that they could spy on if they wanted to. With the walls of Rema Group as the boundary, outside the walls were pairs of prying eyes. The inside of the wall was covered by a black curtain, and it was impossible to see clearly. This was actually a psychological battle, and they would only know who won and who lost at the last moment. On this day, in the afternoon, Charlotte appeared at the gate of Rema Group, and the reporters squatting at the gate swarmed up. One had to know that in the past 3 months, he had only made 2 public appearances. One was when Jiang Rui had a leg cramp, and he had rushed back to take a look. The other time was when he walked from the office building to the door, but he did not say anything and turned back. At that time, all the reporters thought that he was going to announce the official news of Rema Group, but it seemed that he was just strolling around. He appeared again today. How could the reporters, who had been waiting at the door for half a month or even a month, not be excited? "Chairman Xia, are you going to release the official news today?" a reporter asked. "Chairman Xia, Rema Group has been making big moves recently. The whole world is hyping up Rema Group's new aviation material. Can you tell us about its characteristics?" a reporter asked. "Chairman Xia, you said that Rema Group would have a new type of aviation material and a new type of drone on June 1st. There's still half a month left, but we haven't seen any test flights of the drone. Is there any trouble with Rema Group's drone program?" a reporter asked. "Chairman Xia, as far as I know, the most advanced aviation materials are currently led by the United States. Are you sure that the new materials developed by Rema Group will surpass similar technologies and products in the United States?" "Chairman Xia, this is the first time the Rema Group has entered the field of aerial combat. This is the first time it has entered the field of aerial combat and produced a drone for the first time. Are Rema Group's drones really the most advanced drones in the world?" A lot of questions were related to the new materials in drones. The reporters asking questions were not only from China, but also from other countries. They used a variety of languages. There were many people, and the personnel was complicated. However, when Charlotte arrived at the door, he had already used his left and right eye to complete the reconnaissance of all the personnel. Not only did he see through their bodies, but he also saw through their interview and photography equipment. In fact, he only came over after he was sure that no one at the door had a weapon that could threaten him. After this X-ray scanning reconnaissance, not to mention the female reporters, the male reporters disgusted him. The feeling it gave him was as if he entered a large bathhouse where men and women bathed together. Meanwhile, under the cooperation of his freakish right eye and left eye, with just a glance, his brain provided all of the target's data, including the exact amount of hair, down to the root. Was there anything more embarrassing and disgusting than this? "Everyone, please be quiet." Charlotte raised his hand, signaling for silence. The noisy questioning scene suddenly quietened down. Charlotte said, "I don't have much time, so I'll briefly explain the situation." After a pause, he continued, "The Rema Group has successfully developed a new type of aviation material, which can absorb 100% of radar electromagnetic waves and sonar. That is to say, it is not only the best material in the world for manufacturing aviation equipment, but also the best material for manufacturing ships. Its name is Mystic Gold X. Planes made of it can fly anywhere in the world without being detected by radar. It can detect ships, especially submarines, and it is equivalent to absolute stealth. No radar or sonar detector in the world can detect it." As soon as his voice fell, the scene suddenly went out of control again. "Chairman Xia, this material you mentioned is simply the perfect material. Is its physical properties really as good as you say?" a reporter asked. Charlotte replied, "Of course, Mystic Gold X is the most perfect material in the world. I'm very sure of this. Chairman Xia, from what you just said, does the Rema Group want to enter the field of naval warfare and produce warships? A reporter asked. Charlotte replied, the Rema Group doesn't have plans to produce large warships, such as aircraft carriers and destroyers. However, we can't rule out the plan to produce a certain number of stealth submarines for our Navy in the future. We have mature submarine technology. Once we have a certain amount of Mystic Gold X in reserve, we will start the related plan. Chairman Xia, since the Rema Group has already completed the research and production of Mystic Gold X, can you open the workshop for us to take a look? A blonde female reporter wearing glasses asked. Charlotte's gaze moved to the position in front of her legs. On the lower triangle of her triangular region, there was a triangular sword and lightning tattoo. That was the symbol of the Delta Special Forces. This blonde female reporter was obviously a spy from America. Her previous occupation was definitely a commando member of the Delta Special Forces, or possibly a medic. She clearly regarded her service in the Delta Special Forces as the glory of her life. That was why she had the Delta Special Forces emblem tattooed on such a secret place. However, no matter how secret she tattooed it, she couldn't hide from his X-ray scanning. Mr. Xia, can you answer my question? The blonde female reporter urged. Charlotte smiled slightly. Of course not, the Mystic Gold X workshop is our country's top secret. Although I am the owner of the Rema Group, I can't just casually bring people to take a look. Then can you show us a sample of the Mystic Gold X? The blonde female reporter wasn't willing. Charlotte shook his head. I can't either. Then how can you prove that the Rema Group has already produced such advanced materials? The blonde female reporter said. Charlotte smiled and said, I don't need to prove it to anyone. The blonde female reporter stared at Charlotte, as if she wanted to punch him in the nose. Chairman Xia, I've noticed that the situation in the Southern Sea is relatively grim. The International Court of Justice is about to make a ruling, and the U.S. fleet is about to enter that sea. You appeared at this time and made a statement about the so-called new materials and new drone. May I ask, is this a response? A reporter from the Southeast Asia region asked his question in fluent Chinese. Charlotte lightly said, Let me first state that I'm not involved in politics. None of my comments are directed at any country or group, nor are they directed at a specific event at a certain time. We are creating new materials that are beneficial to mankind's aerospace industry, not weapons to kill people. As for the voyage plan of the U.S. fleet, I only represent my personal opinion. For the past 2,000 years, our nation has controlled almost all of Asia's sea. Our nation loves peace, but we are absolutely not afraid of war. For thousands of years, we have rebuilt on the ruins more than once. And I'm not sure if some countries have this ability. After all, they are countries established by speculators, and lack the national cohesion of blood is thicker than water. Chairman Xia, this is not something a peace-loving person can say. Are you implying that you are not afraid of war? The reporter from the Southeast Asia region who raised the question said with a disdainful smile. Charlotte smiled and said, I'm not a soldier, and I'm not a government worker. I'm just an ordinary person. Compared to weapons, I'm more willing to produce socks and shirts. What I said is not important at all. If anyone wants me to take responsibility for my words, no matter who it is, just come and find me. A guy who relies on others to protect him dares to talk big here. What a joke, a Chinese reporter said. His remarks were obviously targeted. What did you say? The reporter from the Southeast Asia region glared at him. I said I should fire the servants in my house. Did you hear that? What do you want? The Chinese reporter was also angry. Charlotte said, This is not a place for you to quarrel. Who else has any questions? I have 2 minutes. Chairman Xia, you have already said the news about Secret Gold X, but you did not say anything about Rema Group's drone. Can you talk about the issues related to Rema Group's drone? A reporter from Japan asked in Chinese, and his Chinese was quite fluent. Charlotte said, I was about to talk about this. Later, our Rema Group's drone will have its first test flight. You are lucky that you can take pictures of it. But I don't want the photos you take here to appear on the computers of Langley in the United States or Japan's Secret Service in a few minutes. The spies and intelligence personnel from several countries mixed in the group of reporters were inexplicably nervous. Haha, just kidding. How can there be so many spies and agents in this world? Well, that's all for my speech. No matter how much I say, it's not as good as seeing it with your own eyes. Well, wipe your eyes and watch, Charlotte said with a smile. A man with high heels and a large part of his chest was walking towards them. He wore a pair of skin-tight pants, and there was a lump between his legs, but his lips were smeared with smoky lipstick, and he also had smoky eyeshadow on his face. He also wore a pair of shiny diamond earrings on his ears. As soon as he appeared, he immediately stole the limelight from Charlotte. Not for anything else, but because he was a man, but he was more beautiful than most women. Qin Xiang, his demonic aura was getting stronger and stronger. Baby. Qin Xiang walked over with cat-like steps. The operators are ready. We are just waiting for your order, and our plane will take off. After that, he handed Charlotte a communicator. Charlotte took the communicator, looked at the multifunction watch on his hand, and then picked up the communicator and said in a deep voice, Take off! Click, click, click. The electronic flash flashed. Chapter 1064. A silver drone soared into the sky from the vehicle's launcher. In the blink of an eye, it flew up to a height of 100 meters. There was no logo on the body of the drone, and it didn't seem to have been painted either. The silver color on the body was just the color of the metal itself. The drone flew higher and higher, and the discussion on the ground became more and more intense. Is this Rema Group's new drone? Are you kidding me? I think it's something bought on Taobao. It's so small. It can't carry any weapon system at all. It doesn't even have a weapon system. How can it be considered the world's most advanced drone? How dare they say that a drone of this level is the world's most advanced drone? The Rema Group is really thick-skinned. A drone of this level can't even compare to Vietnam's, let alone the United States, can it? Is the Rema Group joking? If so, Charlotte's goal has been achieved. What's going on? With the Rema Group's level, the Rema Group's drone can't be such a simple type, right? Not only were the foreign reporters surprised, but even the domestic reporters were surprised and couldn't understand it. These discussions fell into Charlotte's ears, and the voices of ridicule and doubt didn't seem to affect his mood. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, and he looked as calm as ever. Baby, these guys' words are really unpleasant. Qin Xiang frowned. Charlotte rolled his eyes at her. Who's your baby? There are reporters everywhere. If someone writes nonsense, my reputation will be ruined in your hands. Okay. I won't say anything, okay, baby? Qin Xiang said. Charlotte was speechless. Facing such a monster, Charlotte really didn't know what to do. The drone soared in the sky, sometimes stretching its height, sometimes diving down to the ground, and sometimes hovering above the Rema Group. It flew happily, as if charging it didn't cost money. Yes, such a small drone couldn't possibly burn oil. It must have an electric engine. Chairman Xia, is this the world's most advanced drone that you just mentioned? The blonde female reporter from the United States asked Charlotte again. Charlotte retracted his gaze from the drone in the sky. He looked at the blonde reporter in front of him and said with certainty, Of course, this is the most advanced drone produced by our Rema Group. The most advanced drone? The blonde female reporter smiled disdainfully. I wonder what's so advanced about it? Charlotte said, That's a secret. I can't tell you. Are you embarrassed to say it? The reporter from Southeast Asia sneered. Charlotte said, Well, it seems that you won't be satisfied if I don't tell you how advanced it is. The new UAV produced by Rema Group fills a number of domestic and even international gaps. Currently, we have applied for more than 130 patents. I believe you are most interested in its stealth capabilities. Yes, it is invisible to all radars. A drone like this is actually invisible? The reporter from Japan said disdainfully, "Is the radar used to test this drone from World War II? Chairman Xia, why don't you open your operation room? We want to see its stealth performance for ourselves. I believe your radar can provide real data," the blonde female reporter from the United States said. Charlotte said, "That won't do. Our operation room doesn't allow non-staff to enter. This won't do, and that won't do. How can you prove that your drone is the world's most advanced drone?" The reporter from Southeast Asia said, "Of course, what I say is true. You came here voluntarily, not invited by me. Do I have the obligation to satisfy your curiosity?" Charlotte said. The reporter from Southeast Asia suddenly became angry on the spot. "Chairman Xia, Rema Group is testing a new drone at this sensitive time, using a new aviation material developed by your group. I think you are sending a dangerous signal to the United States and its allies. If your drone is indeed the world's most advanced, and the so-called Secret X is real, then this signal is an honest signal. It will help to solve the current problem. But if you haven't developed the X mystical gold and the most advanced drones, then the signal you're releasing isn't an honest one. You're adding more trouble to the already dangerous situation. Don't you think your behavior is irresponsible?" the blonde female reporter said. Charlotte just smiled and said nothing. The scene of reporters asking questions also stopped for a while. It could be said that no reporter was satisfied with the official statement of Rema Group. They waited here for almost a month at the longest, and the shortest was 10 days to half a month. It was not easy to wait for Charlotte to come out and make an official statement, but what they waited for was definitely a big lie. A bump-like drone was a lie. All of Charlotte's remarks were lies. After being lied to one after another, not to mention those proud foreign reporters, even the local reporters in China had complaints and were very dissatisfied. "Forget it, Chairman Xia. I don't think you are going to answer my question," the blonde female reporter said. "When I go back, I will write that the so-called new aviation materials and drones of Rema Group are all a scam. The United States and its allies do not need to worry about the emergence of new technology from Rema Group at all. The myth of the Black Horse Rema Group should also end." As soon as her voice fell, the silver drone hovering over Rema Group suddenly lost power and fell from the sky. It fell. It actually fell. Ah! The reporter from Southeast Asia laughed the most happily. "What, the world's most advanced drone? This is simply a joke." Boom! With a loud noise, the silver drone fell in a field opposite the gate of Rema Group. In that instant, flames soared into the sky, and violent shock waves of the explosion spread out in all directions, turning everything in its path into dust. The place where the silver drone fell was at least 1 kilometer away from the gate. But even from such a distance, the reporters standing at the gate could feel the shock wave of the explosion and the heat wave that burned their skin. Everyone was dumbfounded. "What kind of drone is that?" "It is simply a medium-sized missile. Its power is no less than the Tomahawk cruise missile of the United States. The blonde female reporter's face turned pale. She was stunned for a long time before she said, "Chairman? Chairman Xia, is it a drone?" Charlotte did not seem to hear what she said. He looked at the big hole in the field and frowned slightly. "Who chose that place?" Qin Xiang shrugged. "How would I know? Why don't I ask for you? Of course, I want to find out who that guy is and deduct his salary," Charlotte said angrily. "That is a wheat field, and the wheat is about to be harvested. The farmers have been busy for half a year, and they are about to have a good harvest. But he burned it all in one fire. His salary must be deducted. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. Qin Xiang said, I will go and check for you right now, okay? Charlotte said sternly, check, you must check. It is such a good wheat field, and there seems to be peanuts, right? Qin Xiang. A large group of reporters looked at each other. Rema Group's drone suddenly crashed and created a big hole in the ground. In terms of the power of the explosion, it was definitely no less than the Tomahawk cruise missile of the United States. On the surface, it seemed to be an accident. Rema Group's drone research failed, and it crashed on the first test flight. It was a big joke. But was this the truth? Charlotte and Qin Xiang were still making up and acting by the side, saying that it was wheat and peanut. If the two of them had better acting skills, the reporters might not think so much. But the acting skills of the two of them looked very clumsy. From the beginning to the end, including every line, it gave people a feeling of hypocrisy. As a result, the reporters had more guesses. Chairman Xia, Rema Group's research this time is not actually a drone, right? A local reporter from China asked. He looked very excited. Charlotte said, if it's not a drone, then what is it? It's a flying missile. The China reporter who asked the question said. Charlotte looked at him with a strange look. Brother, have you seen a flying missile? Or, have you seen a walking missile? The China reporter, Chairman Xia, why did Rema Group's drone explode so violently? The blonde female reporter who went to the United States asked tentatively. Charlotte said, I don't know. There must be something wrong. I will investigate the matter clearly and give you a satisfactory answer. Chairman Xia, Rema Group's drone is obviously powered by a lithium battery. It doesn't carry any fuel at all, but why did it explode so violently? Its power is greater than that of an ordinary island. It is actually a new type of weapon from Rema Group, right? The reporter from Japan asked tentatively. Charlotte said, remember, my friends, don't make wild guesses. This is just a test flight and a very failed test flight. I am ashamed of what I said just now. It's just a drone that flew and fell to the ground. You also saw it. The explosion just now was very scary, right? Fortunately, it was just an uninhabited farmland. If it was a city, an airport, or a military target, wouldn't it be very dangerous? Chairman Xia, there is something else in your words. The reporter from Japan probed again. What is the name of this drone from Rema Group? Charlotte said, I can answer this question. It's called Jingku. Jingku was the name of this new drone from Rema Group. Jingku? The blonde female reporter was puzzled. What a strange name. What does it mean? The reporter from Japan looked solemn. Jingku, the most famous assassin in the history of China. He once assassinated the most famous emperor Ing Zheng of China. This reporter from Japan was obviously not a real reporter. He was a Japanese intelligence officer. He had studied the history and culture of China. Charlotte knew his identity, but he didn't care at all. Chapter 1065. Naming the drone after an assassin? The blonde reporter suddenly understood something, and the way she looked at Charlotte also changed. It felt like a herbivore smelling a predator, and fear and nervousness followed. What's wrong with naming the drone after an assassin? Charlotte said calmly. The US has the Thor series and the Predator series. Are the US drones really gods and predators? I don't think so. However, I still have to admit that there is a gap between us and the US. You have also seen that our Jinka drone's test flight failed, and we have made a fool of ourselves. Charlotte said that they had made a fool of themselves, but now no one dared to laugh at Rema Group's seemingly simple drone. It was ugly, but it was definitely not gentle. The Jinka drone did fall from the sky, but from Charlotte's remarks just now, there was a hidden message, which was that the operator deliberately let it fall from the sky to test the power of its explosion. It did not carry fuel, but it carried enough explosives. In terms of the terrifying power it showed, If it also had the ability of absolute invisibility, it would be the most terrifying self-destructing drone in the world. Why did a self-destructing drone need to be so fancy and beautiful? In fact, it was not only the spies and intelligence personnel from abroad who could think of this hidden message, even the reporters from the mainland of China could think of it. But they obviously felt much better than their counterparts from abroad. Charlotte smiled. Okay, that's all for today. When I find out the reason, I will announce it. Also, he looked at the blonde reporter, and after a moment of silence, he said, previously, you mentioned that the U.S. fleet will enter the southern waters, and I released a wrong signal at this special and sensitive time. Let me answer your question now. Whether the signal I released is wrong or correct, as long as the U.S. fleet dares to come to the southern waters, they will see the Jinka drone and the Ghost drone. Ghost drone? Chairman Xia, does Rema Group have another drone? Chairman Xia, why don't you let the Ghost drone fly? Chairman Xia, amidst the chaos of questions, Charlotte had already turned around and left without looking back. Qin Xiang walked beside Charlotte. He turned around under the flashing lights, raised his hips, and put up a peace sign. Charlotte returned to a multi-purpose conference room in the office building. The moment he walked in, thunderous applause and cheers erupted in the multifunctional conference room. The applause and compliments were all for Charlotte. As the brain of Rema Group, he deserved it. This was because, from the first blueprint of the Jinka drone to the first prototype coming out of the production line, everything had been done by him. Without his hard work and dedication, there would be no drones from Rema Group at all. Chairman Xia, what should we do next? Are we going to test our real trump card? Huang Shuwen's voice was heard. He was very young, but he was hot-blooded and could not wait for this kind of thing. However, Charlotte said, no, we won't do anything next. We'll give the workers a few days off. They've been working hard for a few months. They should have a good rest and relax. But there are so many reporters outside. We can show our trump card to them. They'll give us free publicity. This is a good thing for us. Why shouldn't we do it? Huang Shuwen said. Charlotte said, that will be good for our product publicity, but it won't be good for the country. The drones produced by Rema Group will only be supplied to our own army and will not be exported. I've already decided on this matter. No one should say anything else. Weapons were not agricultural products. Some could be sold, and some could not. All the developed countries in the world did the same. They would never sell anything that could threaten their opponents, no matter how much money they offered. Over the past few decades, China had encountered many cases where they could not buy technology even if they had money. Charlotte was not short of money now. No matter how much money they offered, he would not sell it. Lucas. As soon as Sylvia said Lucas, she realized that the occasion wasn't right, so she immediately changed her words. Chairman Xia, if you're going to give the workers a holiday, what about Anina and I? Charlotte said, Phantom isn't really complete yet. We still have to be busy for a while. Do you mean overtime? Said Sylvia, with a faint unconscious smile on her lips. Charlotte nodded. Yes, we'll definitely have to work overtime. That's great. Anina, who was beside Sylvia, clapped happily. The room full of Rema Group's higher-ups looked at the two German women with strange gazes. Among them, there was no lack of ventriloquism. Damn retards! They've been working overtime almost every day for the past few months. Now, they're still so happy about working overtime. Is there something wrong with their brains? However, no one knew what the two female engineers were thinking. Working overtime was their favorite thing to do during this period of time. Charlotte said, all departments and workshops should hand in the name list to the finance department. Everyone will receive a bonus. However, you have to remind the people in each department and workshop to watch their mouths, especially during a very sensitive period. Don't get into big trouble because of a little convenience. Chairman Xia, don't worry. We have been giving our employees ideological and political lessons almost every day. There will be no problems, Huji said. He was Eugene Lee's assistant. After Eugene Lee left, he was the leader of Rema Group's new material department. That's it then. Meeting adjourned, Charlotte said. A group of Rema Group's higher-ups left the multi-purpose conference room. This meeting was a milestone. Before it, it was sowing. After that, it was harvesting. As soon as Charlotte got out of the office building, he saw Fan Fan, who had a big belly, leading a group of soldiers in Navy uniforms. Seeing those Marines, Xia Lei guessed the other party's intention. Fan Fan's belly was already very big, so it was a little inconvenient for her to walk. Charlotte felt a little distressed. He quickly walked up to her and said, "Really, if it's not convenient for you, don't come out." Fan Fan smiled and said, "I'm not that delicate. It's good for my body to walk more." After a pause, she said, "Honey, let me introduce you. This is Chief Yu Zhenhai from the Southern Sea. He wants to talk to you about something." Charlotte's eyes moved to the man with the highest rank. He stretched out his hands, smiled, and said politely, "Hello, Chief Yu. Welcome to Rema Group." Yu Zhenhai hurriedly stretched out his hands and shook hands with Charlotte. He was even more polite than Charlotte. "Comrade Charlotte, Comrade Fan Fan and I are also friends. Let's not be polite. I'm older, so I'll show off my seniority. What do you think of me as your big brother?" Charlotte smiled and said, "Hello, Brother Yu. Let's talk in my office." Yu Zhenhai said, "No, let's go to your drone workshop." Charlotte nodded and said, "No problem. Brother Yu, please follow me." Yu Zhenhai brought the officers of the Southern Sea to Rema Group. It was a special day. Yu Zhenhai's purpose was self-evident. He came because of the tense situation in the Southern Sea. Sure enough, before they reached the drone workshop, Yu Zhenhai said, "Brother Xia, what was that explosion just now?" Charlotte said, "Nothing, just a little accident." Yu Zhenhai said, "Brother Xia, don't lie to me. I received news that Rema Group's drone crashed. Is that true?" "It's true." Charlotte didn't want to hide it from anyone. Yu Zhenhai's expression suddenly changed. "Brother Xia, I'm counting on you to help us solve the problem. Why did your drone crash?" Charlotte said with a smile, "Even if there's no problem, it's just a drone. I'm afraid it can't solve your problem." "Do you know what my problem is?" Yu Zhenhai asked. Charlotte said, "Of course I know. It's about the Southern Sea." Yu Zhenhai said, "Why can't it be solved?" "That bullshit court made a ruling that ignored the fact. The American fleet has an excuse to provoke us. Their aircraft carrier fleet had already arrived from the Pacific Ocean. Didn't you say that your drone has the ability to become invisible? I want to borrow your drone and let it fly a few laps over the UA aircraft carrier. But I didn't expect that before I arrived, I received news that your drone had crashed. Look, I'm so anxious." Charlotte grabbed Yu Zhenhai's hand and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, don't worry. Just tell me when you need it. I'll prepare it for you." Yu Zhenhai said, "A week, no more than 10 days. But didn't your drone crash? What's the problem?" "No problem," Charlotte said. "No problem? How did it crash?" Yu Zhenhai had a curious look on his face, and the legions that followed him here were also confused. Charlotte moved closer to Yu Zhenhai's ear and whispered a few words. Yu Zhenhai had a solemn look, but after listening to Charlotte, he suddenly laughed out loud. "So that's what happened. Yu hee hee." Charlotte said, "All's fair in war. Brother Yu, you're a general, you're an expert in this aspect. You're being polite to me again, aren't you?" Yu Zhenhai put his hand on Charlotte's shoulder. The intimacy between them was like a pair of brothers. "If that's the case, it's great. I'm waiting to see a good show." Arriving at the drone workshop, Charlotte entered the password on the device. The metal door was slowly opened by the motor. Yu Zhenhai and the officers were stunned on the spot. A highly modern drone production workshop entered their field of vision, and several workers were operating the robots on the production line to carry out production. There were a total of 4 Jinka self-destructing drones on the production line. On another larger and more advanced production line, many workers and robots were assembling a larger drone. That was the trump card of Rema Group, Ghost. Chapter 1066. Yu Zhenhai and a few accompanying officers left the Rema Group. When they came, they were filled with anxiety, but when they left, they were all smiling and full of confidence. Charlotte, ha! When they walked out of the Rema Group's gate, Yu Zhenhai suddenly laughed loudly. He's really a shock to China. Boom. The whole world can hear it, it's going to shake. One of the accompanying officers said, Chief Yu, this is great, we can have a good fight with the Americans. Yes. They have been provoking us, our brothers have been holding back a bellyful of anger. Another accompanying officer said, in the past, it was because their weapons were much more advanced than ours, we were no match for them at all. Now we have Charlotte and the Rema Group, F***CK, if the Americans dare to be presumptuous again, I'll beat them up. Before today, I was worried that the American aircraft carrier fleet would enter our waters, now I can't wait for them to come. Now that they're here, we'll teach them a lesson and make them sweat. Another accompanying officer said, soldiers, the barrier of the country, the protectors of the country and the people, they were a group of people with a sense of honor and righteousness. Sometimes they spoke arrogantly, full of aggression, but this was what soldiers were. If a country's soldiers were as polite and reasonable as the literati, then it would not be long before war and disaster befell the country. A few soldiers' cars were parked by the side of the Ping and Residence's gate, and a few guards stood upright on both sides of the car door. When Yu Zhenhai and a few officers walked over, the 3 pregnant women, Long Bing, Liang Xiao, and Jiang Rui, walked out of the gate. Long Bing smiled and nodded at Yu Zhenhai. Yu Zhenhai also nodded politely to Long Bing, then nodded at Liang Xiao and Jiang Rui. Jiang Rui and Liang Xiao smiled back. In the car, an officer said, Charlotte is really good. I heard that these 3 women are also his wives. That's what I heard too. I don't know what Chief Fan is thinking. How can he accept 3 other women? What's even more exaggerated is that those 3 women are also pregnant, another military officer said. Haha, look at Chief Fan and these 3 women's bellies. Charlotte will soon be the father of 4 children. It will definitely be a lively scene, an officer said with a laugh. Shut up. Yu Zhenhai's face darkened. You can chew anyone's tongue, but you can't chew my brother Xia's tongue. So what if my brother Xia has 4 women? If you have the ability, you can also marry 4 women. The officers in the carriage shut their mouth. Compared to Charlotte? Now, there was no man in this world who had such confidence, let alone confidence. As soon as Yu Zhenhai and his entourage left, Charlotte walked out of the gate of Rema Group with Fanfan in his arms. The laborer said as he walked, just now in front of Brother Yu, didn't you say that walking more is good for your health? Why can't you walk as soon as Brother Yu and his entourage left? You want me to carry you? I just want you to carry me. Fanfan put her cheek against Charlotte's cheek. Carrying 1 is equivalent to carrying 2. You've earned it. In the face of such a twisted logic, what else could Charlotte say? Liang Xiao, Long Bing, and Jiang Rui stood at the door and watched Charlotte walk over with Fanfan in his arms. There was no jealousy in their eyes, only joy and happiness. Aren't you afraid that people will laugh at you if they see you like this in broad daylight? Jiang Rui teased. Rui, I just want to see you laugh. Wait a minute, I'll let my husband hug you again, okay? Fanfan said with a smile. Jiang Rui giggled and said, I'm not a little girl. I don't want him to hug me. He's very comfortable. As Fanfan spoke, she rubbed her cheeks against Xia Lei's cheeks and neck, as lovable as a kitten. Her sensitive physique was not good, but now she could pretend that she had no reaction. Liang Xiao suddenly thought of something and said, Sister Fan Fan, come down quickly. Don't let him hug you again. What's wrong? Fan Fan looked puzzled. Liang Xiao said, It's not convenient for us now. If you cause a fire, you can put it out yourself. We won't help you. Only then did Fan Fan understand what Liang Xiao meant. She said, Husband, put me down. Put me down. I don't want you to hug me anymore. Charlotte had an evil smile on his face. The four of you have starved me to death in the past few months. Are you not willing to feed me? No, no. When our bodies are convenient, we can give you as much as you want. Not now, Fan Fan said. Charlotte put Fan Fan down. His face was unwilling, but his heart was full of shame. In the past few months, he was not a man who was about to starve to death. He was about to be stuffed to death by eating Western food every day. Liang Xiao came over and quietly pinched Charlotte's waist. She didn't say anything, but it still made Charlotte nervous. Liang Xiao was clear about his relationship with the two German women. In the past 3 months, he had been working overtime with the two German women every day. She wouldn't believe that nothing had happened. The way she pinched him was obviously reprimanding him for acting innocent even though he had taken advantage of him. This time, Charlotte quietly accepted it and didn't dare to make a sound. Long Bing also knew about his relationship with the two German women, but Long Bing didn't react at all. She had never changed. She was still the same as she was in the past. Therefore, in this aspect, he still liked Long Bing the most. After returning home, Charlotte talked about business. Wives, I have something to tell you. I'm going to the Southern Sea in a week. You're going to the Southern Sea? There's trouble there. Why are you going there? Liang Xiao said worriedly, The military wants your drone. They can take it. You don't have to go. I'm worried. You'd better not go. Charlotte said, I have to go because I have something to do. If I didn't, I wouldn't go. When the country is in trouble, everyone has a responsibility. If I don't go, he doesn't go, and you don't go, then who will go? Liang Xiao didn't try to persuade Charlotte anymore. She knew Charlotte's temper. Once Charlotte made up his mind, no one could change it. However, she still didn't give up. She quietly touched Jiang Rui's waist. Hubby, just listen to Sister Xiao. Jiang Rui also tried to persuade him. It's so chaotic over there. If we don't clear things up, things will go awry. If you go and something happens to you, what will we do? Hubby, don't go. Just give your drone to them. The military has a lot of people who can operate drones. You won't be of much help even if you go. Fan Fan also tried to persuade him. Charlotte smiled bitterly. What's wrong with you guys? I'm not going to the front line to fight. What accident will happen? Don't worry. Other than operating the drone, my most important purpose is to collect some information about the American aircraft carrier fleet. No one can do this for me other than myself. I have to go on this trip to the Southern Sea. The 4 pregnant women looked at each other. Their hearts were still full of worry, but no one tried to persuade Charlotte anymore. They all knew that it was useless. My wives, don't worry. I'm still waiting to hold my son and daughter. How can I bear to die? Charlotte said as he hugged Liang Xiao and Jiang Rui. As soon as he said that, Jiang Rui reached over and covered his mouth. Don't say things like that. It's inauspicious. Okay. I won't say it, okay? Charlotte's heart was filled with warmth. He actually didn't want to leave his wives who were about to give birth, but he had to go. Other than collecting information about the American aircraft carrier fleet, there was another reason. He had to personally operate the Spectre and understand information about the real battlefield. This information was the foundation for the Rema Group's next step, which was to produce fighter jets. Be careful. No matter what you do, think of us and the children. Liang Xiao's voice was very soft and gentle. Charlotte nodded. This was his promise. It was simple, but it had its own weight. Let's not talk about this anymore. I haven't been with you all this time. Let me give you a massage. The The feeling of pregnancy must be very tiring. No, no, no. We don't want you to massage us. Fan suddenly became nervous. Charlotte smiled and said, I really want a massage this time. I don't have any other thoughts. Sit on the sofa. I'll do it one by one. The 4 pregnant women looked at each other and smiled. With such a gentle and considerate man as a woman, what regrets did she have? Charlotte massaged them one by one. When he was done, it was already an hour later. Ring, 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 ring. Charlotte's satellite phone suddenly rang. He took out his phone and answered the call. Hello? It's me. Xia Changhe's voice came from the satellite phone. Listen carefully. I only have 1 minute. Dad, where are you? Charlotte was very excited. When the 4 women heard him call him Dad, their eyes immediately focused on him. Xia Changhe did not answer Charlotte's question on the satellite phone. The Israelis dug out 4 statues from the ruins of the pyramid. They are now excavating the ancient tomb under the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Charlotte was stunned for a moment. An image of the ancient tomb appeared in his mind. There were also 2 faceless warrior statues in the ancient tomb. That ancient tomb was the only tomb in prehistory. He had only been able to enter the ancient tomb because of the compass's guidance. How did the Israelis find such a hidden place? All the statues will be shipped to the United States. It might be the AE Research Center that will take over. I'm following up on this matter. I'll contact you again if there's any new information. It was Xia Changhe's voice. Charlotte said, What do the Americans want those statues for? I still don't know the Americans' purpose. After a pause, Xia Changhe said, When will my grandson be born? Soon. Charlotte said, I hope you can be there when they're born. Can you come back? I'll try my best. Also, be careful when you go to the southern waters, Xia Changhe said, then he hung up. 1 minute, not a second more, not a second less. Chapter 1067. In the dead of night, Lei Long's workshop. 4 air-to-air Force 12 missiles were placed on the workbench, and there was also a big guy. It was China's famous Eagle Claw anti-ship missile. Rema Group had stepped into the field of aerial combat. Producing drones was no longer a problem, but they still didn't have their own aerial ammunition. It was imperative for them to research and produce their own aerial missiles, but they didn't have the time to complete this work. The risk of war in the Southern Sea had already risen to a high level, and he was about to head there. Therefore, the fastest way was to modify the existing missiles and integrate them into Spectre's combat system. Anina and Sylvia were also in Lei Long's workshop. They were going to modify the 4 air-to-air Force 12 missiles with Charlotte, as well as the big guy, the Eagle Claw anti-ship missile. The 2 German women were wearing blue work clothes. Their tall and voluptuous figures were especially sexy, especially their buttocks. Because they were too voluptuous, the fabric was pushed up high like too fermented dough. Once that layer of fabric was peeled off, it would be too fluffy and delicious butter bread. The size of their breasts was also quite impressive. Due to the hot weather, the 2 German women had loosened 4 buttons, and their necklines were almost open to their hearts. In this way, the 2 German women's breasts were snow-white. The mountains and valleys were so soft and delicate that it seemed like they would melt with just a little bit of heat. The voluptuous buttocks swayed in front of Charlotte, but not only did it not hinder his work, it even increased his efficiency. This was the same logic as doping in the arena. Sexy women were the stimulants for most normal men, and he wasn't an exception. Lucas, I still can't believe you're going to install this big guy on your Spectre drone, Sylvia said to Charlotte while measuring the size of the Eagle Claw anti-ship missile. Sylvia, nothing is impossible here in Lucas. Anina, who was preparing the Mystic Gold X material, said, Have you forgotten how many miracles he has created up until now? I can't even count them anymore. But this is an anti-ship missile, a shore-based anti-ship missile, Sylvia said. Sylvia said. It's not a problem for the Spectre drone to be loaded with air-to-air missiles and air-to-ground missiles, but it's a problem to load anti-ship missiles. Not only that, I haven't seen any country solve this problem. Germany hasn't, and neither has the US. This technology is almost impossible in theory. Otherwise, an ordinary fighter jet could become the killer of destroyers and aircraft carriers. Charlotte said with a smile. In ancient times, people thought that it was impossible for people to fly in the sky, but aren't there planes now? There was nothing impossible in this world. It was just a matter of ability and method. As long as you have the ability and the right method, anything is possible. Is anything really possible? Sylvia looked at Charlotte with a strange gaze. Charlotte nodded. Of course. Just wait and see. I will load the Eagle Claw missiles onto my Wraith drone. If you're so powerful, why didn't you knock me and Anina up? Said Sylvia. Charlotte was speechless. It was like his throat was stuffed with something soft, and there seemed to be a button on it. Yeah, Lucas, I think it's strange too. You made your wives pregnant, but why didn't Sylvia's and my bellies have any reaction? Anina also felt that it was very strange. Charlotte bit the bullet and said, How would I know? It's probably your problem. Our problem? It's not our problem. Anina and I went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor said that everything is normal for us, said Sylvia. Charlotte suddenly felt a headache. What's wrong with you two? Don't tell me you want to be moms? Don't you like mixed-race babies? Sylvia asked. Charlotte was speechless. It wasn't a matter of liking or not, but a matter of not wanting them at all. If the 4 pregnant women at home knew that these 2 German women had such thoughts, they would definitely force him to chase them away. But if that happened, Rema Group would suffer a huge loss. Ha ha! Sylvia suddenly laughed. Lucas, look at how scared you are. We're just joking with you. We don't want to be moms at such a young age. We've earned so much money, and we haven't had enough fun yet. Yes, we're going to enjoy the world. Anina also laughed and said, Actually, we've taken those long-lasting drugs. Otherwise, you're so powerful, we would have definitely fallen into your trap. It turned out to be a joke after all this talk. Charlotte was furious. He walked up and slapped each of them on their butt. With 2 crisp sounds, 2 black palm prints suddenly appeared on the buttocks of the 2 German women. You two, look at the situation now, and you're still in the mood to joke with me. Charlotte pretended to be angry. Let's get to work. Sylvia, after you're done measuring, you'll use the X-Mystic Gold to make the shell for me. Yes, my king. Sylvia said with a smile, and then bumped Charlotte with her buttocks that had an engine oil palm print on it. Charlotte raised his hand and slapped her again. Ouch! You hurt me, said Sylvia, looking very pitiful. Serves you right. If you don't listen, I'll hit you again. Until it's swollen, Charlotte said fiercely. Sylvia was speechless. Charlotte then said to Anina, Anina, you're in charge of cutting the materials and dismantling these 4 air-to-air missiles. Yes, my king. Anina suddenly came over and kissed Charlotte on the cheek. Kissing on the cheek? Charlotte couldn't possibly slap her, right? Lucas, why didn't you slap her? Sylvia said. Charlotte waved his hand and slapped her. With a crisp slap, ripples spread out. However, he didn't slap Anina, but Sylvia. Ha ha ha! Anina laughed happily, but in the next second, the wrench in her hand fell onto her foot. Her laughter instantly disappeared. Ha ha ha! Sylvia laughed instead. This was the scene of Charlotte working with the 2 German women. It had been like this almost every day for the past 3 months. After the flirting session ended, the Germans' strict style was perfectly displayed by them. Even if they were removing a screw, they would do it meticulously. Charlotte calmed down. The part he was in charge of was the most important part, the brain and heart of the missile. A missile was made up of 4 parts: propulsion system, guidance system, warhead, and missile body. Sylvia and Anina were in charge of the missile body, while he was in charge of the propulsion system and guidance system. These two parts were also the most important parts of a missile. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them the brain or heart. The plan to modify the missile wasn't complicated. First, it was to remake the shell with X-mystical gold. X-mystical gold had the characteristic of absolute stealth. If it was used to make the shell of the missile, the radar of warships and fighter jets wouldn't be able to detect it. Once the modified missile entered the visual range, it would already be in the inescapable range of the missile. Take the 12-force air-to-air missile as an example. Its effective range was 70 kilometers, its speed was Mach 4, and its overload was 38 g. Its inescapable range was 35 to 40 kilometers in front of the aircraft. In other words, once a fighter jet equipped with the 12-force air-to-air missile entered the 35 to 40 kilometers range of the enemy aircraft and fired the 12-force air-to-air missile, the enemy aircraft that was locked on by the missile wouldn't be able to escape. The simple reason was that no fighter jet could run faster than a missile, and no fighter jet had the maneuverability of a missile. Once this happened, the fighter jet that was locked on by the missile would most likely turn into a huge fireball. However, the possibility of this happening in reality was almost zero. This was because modern warfare was beyond visual range. Fighter jets would be discovered hundreds of kilometers away, but the carried air-to-air missile only had a range of a few dozen to 100 kilometers. There was no chance for it to be launched. Therefore, the inescapable range of the air-to-air missile usually only existed on paper, and there was almost no chance of it becoming a reality in real combat. However, if the aircraft carrying the air-to-air missile had absolute stealth and entered the inescapable range, the missiles launched would also have absolute stealth capabilities. The inevitable result would be that even the world's most advanced F-35 fighter jet would be destroyed. Therefore, in theory, once the Rema Group's Ghost fighter entered the battlefield, it would have absolute stealth capabilities, and the 12-force air-to-air missile it carried would also have absolute stealth capabilities. It would be absolutely no problem for it to kill an F-35. This wasn't the scariest part. What was even scarier was that once the Ghost fighter had the ability to carry the Eagle Claw anti-ship missile, it would mysteriously fly over the UA fleet. The UA warships would also face the terrible situation that the fighter jets faced: inescapable. Charlotte's left eye and right eye activated at the same time and entered into cooperative mode. In his field of vision, the Eagle Claw anti-ship missile turned into groups of data and independent images. This information was presented in his brain, reorganized, and recombined. During this process, it was as if there were billions of scientific researchers working in his brain. They eliminated the unreasonable parts, optimized the unreasonable into reasonable, and turned the not-so-excellent into the best. The roguish X-ray scanning mode of his left eye and right eye, in addition to the superbrain mode, was the first time that Charlotte used the three as one. This was a new experience for him. For him, it was as if he had entered a whole new world. No matter what the problem was, it was solved in an instant. No matter how complicated the structure was, a three-dimensional image was produced in an instant. In this mode, not to mention modifying a few missiles, even building a space shuttle would not be a problem. All the problems regarding the Eagle Claw anti-ship missile were completely solved in just half an hour. Charlotte's brain already had a complete modification plan. It was detailed and accurate to the size of a screw. On the other side, Sylvia and Anina were also working in full swing. Their sweat soaked their work clothes. The material of the work clothes was very thick and did not feel transparent. However, when Charlotte had nothing to do, their clothes would all evaporate. Chest circumference 90 centimeters, waist circumference 60 centimeters, hip circumference 89 centimeters, leg length 116 centimeters. 4,180. During a boring time, when the roguish data appeared in his brain, Charlotte blurted out, "Sylvia, why are you missing 9? What do you mean by missing 9? Sylvia lifted her head and looked at Xiaolei curiously. Sorry, I was wrong. Turns out they were hidden, Charlotte said. What are you talking about? Get to work, don't be distracted. You're the one who's distracting me. Lucas, you bad guy. Do you want to go to the lounge? If you do, just say it. The blonde woman was provoked. Charlotte buried his head and pretended not to hear. Chapter 1068. A week later, in the southern waters. On a destroyer. The sea breeze blew against his face, bringing with it the humid air and the unique smell of the sea. Looking at the sea stretching out in his field of vision and the rolling waves, Charlotte's thoughts were also tumbling like the tide, up and down, refusing to stop for a moment. What do the Americans want to do by taking away the 6 statues of the faceless warriors? The 6 statues of the faceless warriors symbolize the 6 sides of the ancient Audiobook. I have never been able to solve this secret. Did the Americans bring them back to the United States to solve this secret? That's impossible. It's almost impossible for the Americans to know about the existence of the ancient Audiobook. They only know about the existence of the AE capsule and the holy relic of the Knights Hospitaller, but if they don't know, then why are they so interested in the 6 statues of the faceless warriors? Charlotte was still thinking about the phone call from his father a week ago. The sound of footsteps came from behind him. They were faint but familiar footsteps. The people approaching him seemed to be cautious or had ulterior motive. Charlotte didn't turn his head. Akiko, you've passed the age of playing hide and seek, right? Boss, I'm not playing a game. Akiko Tsukino ended her stealth and came to Charlotte's side. I'm testing your vigilance and hearing abilities. Only then did Charlotte look at Akiko Tsukino. She was wearing a summer navy uniform, a blue short-sleeved shirt and a blue short skirt. Her breasts were propping up the short-sleeved shirt, and her large white breasts were also propping up the short skirt, making it look full. This was the first time she wore a uniform, but she wore it with the flavor of a female naval officer, valiant and sexy. She was still so charming. Then what's the result of your test? In front of the beauty, Xiaolei controlled his left eye as well as his right eye. Akiko Tsukino said, even a cat can't hear my footsteps just now. But not only did you hear them, but you also determined my identity from the characteristics of my footstep. My conclusion is that your hearing should be more sensitive than a cat. Charlotte was stunned for a moment, feeling a little surprised and uncomfortable. His attention had always been on his eyes and brain, and he rarely paid attention to other organs. Now that Akiko Tsukino said that his hearing was even more sensitive than a cat's, how could he not be surprised? Aren't you exaggerating a little? Charlotte's heart was filled with surprise, but he still maintained a calm expression on his face, making it impossible for others to see through his emotional fluctuations and psychological changes. My conclusion is not exaggerated at all. It's the truth. Akiko Tsukino said, I'm just using a cat's hearing as an analogy. A cat's hearing is 4 times that of a human's. I'm not comparing your hearing to that of a dog, because a dog's hearing is dozens of times better than a human's. How do you know such obscure knowledge? Said Charlotte. Akiko Tsukino said, my master taught me. He said that ninja is actually turning people into cat. We need to have extraordinary sensitivity, not only in movement, but also in hearing and vision. Mastering this knowledge will also help us hide in the dark, approach the target, and then kill the target. Charlotte secretly said in his heart, she said that my hearing is equivalent to a cat's hearing and not a dog's hearing. If this is just the beginning of my hearing evolution, and the initial stage is already equivalent to a cat's hearing, then wouldn't it be comparable to a dog's hearing in the end? The Creator gave humans a brain that surpassed other species, but at the same time weakened the human body and other organs. The Creator did not give other species smarter brains, but He did give them bodies and organs that were far superior to those of humans. The sensitivity of a cat, the hearing of a dog, the wings of a bird, and even the legs of a mantis. There were countless examples in nature. This was the balance that the Creator had given to nature, but now he had broken this balance. Not only did he have a smarter brain, but he also had the ability to surpass the body and organs of other species. Boss, to be honest, you are the strongest human I have ever seen. Don't you think so? I feel especially honored to be with you. Akiko Tsukino said, her eyes burning. Charlotte smiled faintly. You can say these words in front of me. Don't say it in front of others, otherwise I will be treated as a monster. Akiko Tsukino nodded. She looked at the rolling waves of the sea and suddenly said, Boss, can I wait for you in my cabin tonight? Charlotte, Akiko Tsukino's eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. She had never forgotten the promise she made to Charlotte. She didn't have a chance in Kyoto, but now that she was out, she had a chance. In the face of such an invitation, Charlotte was worried. To refuse or to keep the appointment, he needed to make a decision, but no matter which decision it was, it put him in a difficult position. At this time, Erdemo came over and said, Boss, Chief Yu is looking for you. He asked you to go to the bridge. Okay, I'll go right away. Charlotte said, then he added, You two stay here and guard the warship. Don't walk around, don't touch anything that you can't touch, and don't get into conflict with the officers and soldiers on the warship. Oh, boss, don't worry. Akiko and I are not ignorant teenagers. We won't cause you any trouble on this military ship. Erdemu said. That's good. Then I'll go. You guys talk. Charlotte left the deck and walked to the bridge. Erdemo, who was also wearing a navy uniform, walked to Akiko Tsukino's side and said, Akiko, haven't you dealt with him yet? What do you want to say? Akiko Tsukino's tone was no longer as gentle as when she talked to Charlotte, it was cold. Erdemo shrugged and said, We have an old saying in China that we should not let fertile water flow to outsiders. Akiko, you are the most beautiful one in our Zodiac battle team. You and the boss together is the best result. Well, if you need me to help you, just ask. Akiko Tsukino was a little moved. What can you help me with? I can help you watch the door when you and the boss are doing it, so that people don't disturb you. I can also help you get sex toys, clothes, and so on. Do you want them? Erdemu said. Do you have them? Of course. Erdemu said, but it's not free. 10,000 yuan, I'll sell it to you cheaply. Why don't you just rob a bank? Akiko Tsukino gave Erdemu the middle finger. Then 8,000 yuan. On this warship, you can only buy this kind of rare goods from me. Akiko Tsukino. In the bridge, Charlotte saw Yu Zhenhai. Brother Xia, you're here. Yu Zhenhai waved to Charlotte. Come and have a look. Charlotte walked over and looked at the screen with Yu Zhenhai. It was a satellite image transmitted by the Big Dipper satellite. A U.S. fleet was sailing from the Pacific Ocean to the southern waters. On the screen, there was a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 3 anti-air cruisers, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, and a supply ship. These warships were riding the wind and the wave. It was a spectacular scene. Yu Zhenhai pointed to the screen of the fleet sailing on the screen and said, This is the U.S. 7th Fleet. This nuclear-powered aircraft carrier is the George Washington. We can only see the warships on the surface. There should be 2 or 3 nuclear-powered submarines under the water. The military force of this fleet is enough to destroy the military system of a small country. Several officers standing next to Yu Zhenhai looked solemn. Although they were not convinced and had a belly full of anger, they had to admit the strength of the U.S. in the face of absolute strength. In terms of pure naval warfare, China's navy was far from being a match for the U.S. Navy. This was a fact they had to admit. Yu Zhenhai said again, If they want to come from Malacca, we can't stop them at all. Our warships are no match for them, and the military facilities on the island have not been completed yet. Damn it, if they dare to provoke us in another 10 years, I'll be the first to beat them up. For various reasons, the world had given China 30 years. China had developed from a poor state to the largest economy today. The strength of the country had attracted the attention of the world. But the US was not a fool. It would not give China more time to develop. It would never allow another superpower in this world that could challenge its ruling position to appear. Therefore, there were trade barriers and technical blockade. After these tricks failed, they directly used force. The strategy of returning to the Asia-Pacific was a clear example. Charlotte was also shocked by the images sent back by the Big Dipper satellite, especially the various warplanes parked on the George Washington. They were all war weapons that could easily tear apart a country's defense network. The purpose of his visit this time was to challenge the warplanes on the George Washington, and even the entire fleet. "Brother Yu, when will they be able to reach us?" Xiaolei asked. Yu Zhenhai said, 6 days at most, but we don't have 6 days left. We have to hurry up and prepare. Charlotte said, "When will my goods be delivered to the island?" "They will be delivered tomorrow." Yu Zhenhai typed a few times on the keyboard, and the image of an island suddenly appeared on the monitor. It was an artificial island built by artificial reclamation. There were 2 runways on the island, as well as radar and other military facilities. Although it was small, it had everything. Charlotte said, "When can we get to the island?" Yu Zhenhai said, "Is that island called Big Melon Island? According to the speed of this destroyer, we can reach the island in the morning of the day after tomorrow. But I can arrange for you to take a helicopter tomorrow at noon. You can reach Big Melon Island in 5 hours. So, if you are in a hurry, you can probably reach Big Melon Island with your goods tomorrow." Charlotte thought for a moment. "Then I will take a helicopter tomorrow at noon. I will arrange it." Yu Zhenhai held Charlotte's hand. "Brother, this time it's up to you." Charlotte nodded. "Don't worry, I won't let you down." Chapter 1069. In the evening, the wind blew, and it rained, accompanied by flashes of lightning and thunder. It seemed as if the heavens wanted to create more trouble for Xiaolei in this trip to the Southern Sea. However, no matter how great the difficulties and obstacles were, they would not be able to stop Xiaolei's footstep. It was fine if he didn't come, but since he had come, he would do his best. An armed helicopter moved forward in the storm. The sky was filled with lightning, thunder, and heavy rain, but below it were raging waves that had the momentum to devour everything. In such an environment there was the risk of death at any time. Not only was the pilot in a cold sweat, but even Charlotte, Akiko Tsukino, and Erdemo in the helicopter were also in a cold sweat. No matter how powerful a person was, in the face of the power of nature, they were small and insignificant. "Comrade, how much longer will it take to get to Melon Island?" Charlotte asked. "About another hour." The Navy soldier driving the helicopter said, "Mr. Xia, you don't have to worry. Flying at sea, there are too many times when we encounter this kind of weather." "Okay, we're fine. You concentrate on flying your plane," Charlotte said. The helicopter continued to fly forward. Beep beep, beep beep. The satellite phone suddenly rang. Charlotte took out the satellite phone, glanced at it, and then answered the phone. "Hello, it's me. Ki." Siamu's voice came from the satellite phone. "Boss, I've arrived in Israel. Be careful. If you can investigate, investigate. If you can't, don't investigate. Your safety is the most important," Charlotte said. He had sent Siamu to Israel to investigate the Americans and the faceless warrior statue. This matter was no less important than what he was doing now. He had to find out how the Americans knew about the tomb under the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. "Got it, boss," Siamu said. "I'm afraid Yelena and Angumi-kan have arrived in the Philippines. They will probably call you at this time. I won't talk to you anymore. I'll contact you when I have news." Siamu hung up the phone. Do. Just as he ended the call with Siamu, another call came in. This time, it was Yelena who called. Boss, we've arrived in the Philippines. Charlotte said, pay attention to your safety. Collecting information about the Philippines and the U.S. military is not the most important thing. The most important thing is your safety. Do you understand what I mean? Act within your means and don't take risks. Got it, boss, Yelena said, but don't worry, I will contact the Russian intelligence service. Why should I exchange my life for information that can be bought with money? Don't you think so? Charlotte, well, that's it. I'll contact you when I have information. Yelena hung up the phone. Charlotte was thinking about a question in his heart. Would the members of the Zodiac Squad become lazy because he was too rich? Would they lose their meaning and have super fighting power and execution ability? Boss, have they arrived at their destination? Erdemu asked. Charlotte said, yes, both sides are in place. He looked out the window and looked at the sky with lightning and thunder. We're almost there. At this moment, his ears suddenly caught a trace of a strange sound. It was not the roar of the wind, nor the roar of the waves, nor was it the sound of lightning and thunder. He looked in the direction of the sound, but through the layers of rain, he couldn't see further. Boss, what happened? Akiko Tsukino noticed Charlotte's strangeness. I heard something. Charlotte frowned. The sound of the wind and the sea was so loud that it interfered with his hearing. He couldn't tell what was making the sound. Akiko Tsukino closed her eyes and got rid of the distracting thoughts. She listened carefully, but soon she opened her eyes. I didn't hear anything strange. Besides the sound of the sea and the wind, there was also the sound of lightning and thunder. Erdemo also said, I didn't hear anything special. Boss, are you too sensitive? Did you hear it wrong? Charlotte was sure that he didn't hear it wrong, but he wasn't sure what was making the sound. The image of Akiko Tsukino closing her eyes and listening flashed in his mind. He seemed to get an inspiration. He closed his eyes and got rid of all the distracting thoughts in his mind, and then listened to the sound again. His mind was blank, but there was a thought in his mind, which was to listen and identify the sound. With this thought, Charlotte's hearing became the dominant existence in his body. Everything was centered on it and everything served it. The whole process was like a long jumper gathering all the strength in his body and leaping into the air. Boom! There was a slight vibration in both ears at the same time, and all the sounds were magnified many times. The sound of the wind was so loud that it could blow over a warship. The sound of lightning and thunder shook the world, as if it was going to shatter the sky and the earth. There was also the sound of the sea. Huge waves collided with each other, giving people the feeling that thousands of horses and soldiers were charging. Among these loud sounds, a faint sound was gradually caught and magnified. It was the sound of a helicopter engine. It wasn't a helicopter, but a group of them. Charlotte suddenly opened his eyes and said loudly, Comrade, did General Yu arrange for someone to meet us? The Navy soldier driving the helicopter looked back at Charlotte. Mr. Xia, as far as I know, no. If there was, I would have been informed. Mr. Xia, why would you ask such a question? Charlotte's expression suddenly became nervous. There are helicopters approaching us, and there are 4 of them. No, there's no indication on the radar. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter looked at the radar screen again, and there really wasn't any flying target on it. If there was a radar, it would have been discovered long ago. Are you sure? Charlotte asked again. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter smiled. Mr. Xia, I'm sure. If there was a radar, it would have been discovered long ago. It's impossible that you found it and the radar didn't, right? Charlotte closed his eyes again, and this time, the listening process only lasted for 5 seconds. He said in a deep voice, I'm sure there are 4 helicopters, and we will meet soon. Contact General Yu immediately and tell him that we are in trouble. Mr. Xia, this. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter looked at the radar screen again. He smiled bitterly and said, There really isn't any plane. How do you want me to tell General Yu? He will scold me to death. Charlotte said sternly, Stop looking at your radar. It might be the top secret Comanche helicopter from the United States. It has stealth capabilities, and your radar can't detect it at all. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter was stunned. Charlotte had already grabbed the life jacket hanging on the cabin wall and quickly put it on. He said, Erdemo, Akiko, put on the life jacket. Akiko Tsukino and Erdemo looked at each other, and the next second, they executed Charlotte's order. It didn't matter whether there was a Comanche stealth helicopter or not. They only needed to believe in one thing, and that was that Charlotte's judgment had never been wrong. Okay, I'll contact the command. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter grabbed the communicator. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, the sound of interference came from the communicator. It was very ear-piercing. The expression of the Navy soldier driving the helicopter suddenly changed. Oh no, our radio signal is being interfered with. At this moment, 4 dazzling light beams suddenly shot from 4 directions. After that, 4 sci-fi-looking helicopters appeared in front, back, left, and right, and surrounded the helicopter as soon as they appeared. It was indeed the most advanced stealth helicopter in the United States, and it was regarded as an absolute secret Comanche. Damn! What are they trying to do? The Navy soldier driving the helicopter was livid. This is our territorial waters, our territory. How dare they surround us here? Charlotte lowered the Navy cap on his head and avoided being recognized. One thing was for sure, if he was discovered here, the White House and the Pentagon would not hesitate to order the helicopter to be destroyed. As if understanding Charlotte's concerns, Akiko Tsukino and Erdemo also avoided being recognized. At this time, a voice suddenly came from a Comanche using the aircraft's loudspeaker. You have trespassed into the territory under the jurisdiction of the United States Navy. Immediately turn around and fly back. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter also shouted through the aircraft's loudspeaker. This is China's airspace. You are trespassing, please leave. I'll give you 1 minute to turn around and fly back. Otherwise, open fire. The other side's voice was full of arrogance. This is impossible. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter said angrily. This is our airspace. Also, we only have enough fuel to fly for half an hour. You want us to turn around and fly back? This is equivalent to asking for our lives. That's none of our business. Turn around and fly back immediately. The other side said rudely. Damn it. The Navy soldier driving the helicopter roared. Do you want war? A flash of fire suddenly appeared under the belly of one of the Comanche helicopters. Jump. Charlotte did not dare to hesitate for a second. He opened the cabin door and jumped into the raging sea. Akiko Tsukino and Erdemo followed Charlotte and jumped down. The next second after the 3 of them jumped out of the helicopter, an air-to-air missile hit the helicopter. Boom! Flames rose to the sky. The helicopter was blown to pieces before it hit the sea. The young Navy soldier did not manage to escape and was sacrificed. Until his death, he did not believe that the American helicopter would fire a missile at him. He also had no way of reporting what happened here back to the headquarters. Boom! Charlotte's body plunged into the sea. The huge impact offset the buoyancy of the life jacket, and his body was immediately swallowed by the waves. Erdemo and Akiko Tsukino also encountered the same situation. The moment their bodies touched the sea, they were swallowed by the wave. The sea was raging. The fragments of the helicopter also fell into the sea. The 4 Comanche helicopters continued to fly eastward. On the command helicopter that launched the missile, an officer picked up the communicator and said, "The target has been cleared. Sea King 11, you can follow up now." Behind the 4 Comanche helicopters, a multi-purpose Sea King anti-submarine helicopter appeared. These 5 helicopters did not appear by chance. They were on a mission to search for China's submarines. They were trying to figure out the situation under the sea for the upcoming 7th Fleet. Just after the 5 helicopters flew away, Charlotte's head emerged from the sea. He looked in the direction where the 5 helicopters flew away. His eyes were burning with madness. Chapter 1070. Akiko Tsukino and Urdumu also emerged from the sea and swam towards Charlotte with all their might. But before they could swim to Charlotte's side, a huge wave came over and the two of them were swallowed up by the sea again. Charlotte was frightened, but he couldn't help at all. In front of the power of nature, he was actually a very small existence. After several twists and turns, the 3 of them gathered together. "Damn it!" Urdumu said angrily. "Those Americans dare to open fire in our territorial waters." Charlotte said, "The weak will be bullied, but they treat us as weak. This is not only arrogance but also stupidity. I will make them pay, I will." Akiko Tsukino took Charlotte's hand and said, "Hold on to me, the 3 of us have to stay together." Xiaolei grabbed Yukino Enko's hand tightly, and at the same time, he also grabbed Urdumuta's hand tightly. The 3 of them were floating in the raging waves, like 3 leaves of duckweed that could be swallowed up by the sea at any time. Fortunately, Charlotte had made a judgment in advance and asked Urdumu and Akiko Tsukino to wear life jackets. Otherwise, even if they escaped the missile attack, they wouldn't survive long in the sea. Once their strength was exhausted, even a frogman would drown in the sea. "There's a board there." While struggling, Charlotte saw a board floating out of the water. It was part of the helicopter that had just been destroyed. It looked like a plastic board filled with foam. The 3 of them swam towards the board with all their might. The plastic board was 3 square meters in size, and its surface area was just enough for 3 people to climb up. "Akiko, you go up first." Charlotte held Akiko Tsukino's waist and lifted her up. Akiko Tsukino used both her hands to climb up the plastic board, but when she exerted force, the plastic board tilted in her direction. Her body lost its support and fell into the sea again. There was no leverage in the sea, and the plastic board was not fixed. Even a ninja would find it difficult to climb up. One more time. Urdumu swam to the other side of the board and pressed it with his hand. Charlotte hugged Akiko Tsukino's waist again and lifted her up. When Akiko Tsukino climbed up a little, he had to hold her but with both hands and push her up. Akiko Tsukino's navy uniform skirt had long been soaked by the sea. Just when her upper body was lying on the plastic board, her navy uniform skirt was suddenly washed up by a sudden wave. A plump but wrapped in soft fabric was suddenly exposed to Charlotte's field of vision. The white soft fabric soaked in seawater was like another layer of her skin. It was tightly attached to her buttocks and a certain part of her body. It was tightly attached and clear. The plump shape of the buttocks was almost 95% revealed in Charlotte's field of vision, and there was also a place that was clearly displayed in front of him with 93% transparency. It looked like a grassy hill, and there was a small ditch that divided the hill into 2. Charlotte shook his head and smiled bitterly. He secretly blamed himself for looking at other people's buttocks at this time. Although he was passive, he couldn't help but look at it a few more times. Akiko Tsukino climbed onto the plastic board, then turned to Charlotte and reached out her hand. "Hold my hand, hurry up." Xiaolei grabbed her hand, and with her help, he climbed onto the plastic board. Then Akiko Tsukino stayed on one side of the plastic board, while Charlotte climbed to Urdumu's side and pulled Urdumu up. When the 3 people stayed on the plastic board, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Without this plastic board, even if the 3 people were wearing life jackets, it would be very dangerous, because once their physical strength was exhausted, a wave could swallow them. With this plastic board, the 3 people could save physical strength and increase the hope of survival. Charlotte operated the multifunction watch on his wrist and switched it into satellite positioning mode. He zoomed in on the partial map and quickly found the location of Big Melon Island. He said, "The place we are going to is still 100 kilometers away. Don't worry, we can get there. We just have time to play." "We should call Chief Yu," Erdamu said. Charlotte said, "No, isn't what happened just a lesson? Boss, I know you are talking about radio jamming, but those guys have flown away. We only need a minute to get in touch with Chief Yu, and he will arrange for a plane or a ship to pick us up." Erdemuta had his own ideas, and he seemed to be very sure that his plan was feasible. Charlotte pointed to the dark clouds in the sky. "Although I can't see, I am sure that there will be U.S. military electronic fighters above us, as well as reconnaissance aircraft. With the strength of the U.S. military, as long as you make a phone call, the Americans will lock onto our position. Do you think they will leave anyone alive after what they just did?" Charlotte's words made Erdamu break out in a cold sweat. Akiko Tsukino also said, "Yes, we can't make a phone call. If our conversation is eavesdropped by the U.S. Intelligence Department, it is very likely that the U.S. intelligence personnel will analyze that the boss is in this area. At that time, I am afraid there will be dozens of fighters and warships coming. Don't you know that the Americans want to kill the boss?" Erdamu shrugged. "Well, just pretend that I didn't say anything. I was just thinking about the safety of the boss. After all, in this weather, it is very dangerous for us to stay in the sea." Charlotte said, "Wait until we are a few dozen kilometers closer to Big Melon Island, then we will consider whether or not to make a phone call." The three used their hands as oars to paddle the survival boat in the direction of Big Melon Island. Fortunately, the wind was blowing in the direction of Big Melon Island, which saved a lot of energy for the three people and made them a lot faster. Otherwise, it would have taken the three people 2 days to cross a distance of 100 kilometers with their hands. At the same time, on the Chinese destroyer. "What? You still can't contact him?" Yu Zhenhai was furious. "What are you doing? If you lose him, you won't be able to pay for it even with your lives." In the bridge, a large group of naval officers and warship operators did not dare to say a word. They completely understood why Yu Zhenhai was so angry. One of the passengers on the lost helicopter was Charlotte, China's national hero. Charlotte and Rema Group were changing the structure of the world. If anything happened to Charlotte, it would be an irreparable loss for this country. It could even be said to be a huge blow. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and find him!" Yu Zhenhai roared. "Continue to contact that helicopter. Also, ask the Air Force for help. Let them send a plane to find him. Also, immediately call the Big Melon Island military base, and ask them to send a ship to search." The whole bridge was busy. "General," a radar operator suddenly said nervously, "there is an unidentified flying object in the sea ahead." Yu Zhenhai followed him. He saw a small red dot on the radar screen, and it was quickly moving in his direction. He frowned. "Open the public channel and contact them. Ask them to report their identity." The operator followed Yu Zhenhai's order. "This is China's territorial waters. You have trespassed. Please show your identity." The operator said a lot, but the other side did not respond. "At this speed, it may be a large helicopter." An officer said, "I guess it is an anti-submarine helicopter. It may be the Sea King anti-submarine helicopter of the United States." The Americans are really arrogant. Yu Zhenhai's eyes were full of anger. "This is our territorial waters. How dare they shoot an anti-submarine helicopter to investigate? Immediately illuminate it with the radar. If it still doesn't leave, then use the ship's cannon to bomb it." There were many anti-aircraft missiles on the destroyer. It was actually easy to shoot down an anti-submarine helicopter. However, Yu Zhenhai chose to use the ship's cannon. It was almost impossible to shoot down a helicopter with the ship's cannon. This was actually a means of deterrence. If he really wanted to shoot down a helicopter that invaded the territorial waters, even he had to report and get approval. It turned around, the radar operator said. Humph. Do they really think they are the king of the earth? This is not the Gulf of Mexico, nor is it the Mediterranean Sea. They can't let their aircraft and warships run wild here. Yu Zhenhai was still angry. At this moment, the observer who was observing the front with the optical telescope suddenly exclaimed, "Reporting! It's not just one helicopter, it's 5. There are also 4 armed helicopters escorting it." Yu Zhenhai ran sideways and used the ship's optical telescope to look at the sea in the direction of the bow. In his field of vision, there were 4 armed helicopters flying close to the sea surface. He then ordered, "Prepare for battle." Those are the Sea King helicopters of the United States. They have the ability to become invisible. The aircraft was invisible to the radar, but the human eye could still see it. If the 4 Sea King helicopters wanted to attack the destroyer, they would have succeeded. However, they obviously did not dare to do so. This was a destroyer, and the weapons they carried could not destroy such a huge warship. Once they opened fire, it would mean war. 3 seconds later, a piercing alarm sounded on the warship. The Navy responded quickly. The gunners were in position, and the missile operators were in position. Just when the destroyer sounded the battle alarm, the 4 Comanche stealth helicopters turned around and flew in the direction of the Philippines. Yu Zhenhai clenched his fist and punched the window next to him. They did it on purpose. Damn it. We are still behind. If we are behind, we will be bullied. There was an angry atmosphere in the bridge. On one of the Comanche stealth helicopters, a white captain laughed disdainfully. We are flying so close, and they still haven't discovered us. If they really start a war, how long can their outdated warship last? Ha ha ha. David, when our fleet enters their waters, the whole world will laugh at them. The co-pilot laughed happily. Kane, let's go back to the base now and find some Filipino girls to relax. The captain called. David had a smirk on his face. The co-pilot bumped fists with David. Okay, no problem. I know a place, they have little girls. Chapter 1071. The night was getting darker and darker. The rain continued to fall. The storm, lightning, and thunder. The whole world seemed to be bearing the wrath of nature. The survival boat struggled to move forward in the raging waves. It rose and fell with the waves. It could be destroyed at any time. Akiko Tsukino curled up in Charlotte's arms. Charlotte's body was very warm, which made her feel very comfortable. Charlotte's body had a strong immune system. It allowed Charlotte's body to adapt to extreme environments. The normal functions of the body would not be affected by cold or heat. On the snow-capped mountain of Ta Wang, the temperature was so low. He gave all his clothes to Tang Yuyan, but he could still fight normally. The cold air caused by the storm was a piece of cake for him. Akiko Tsukino was very comfortable, but Erdemo was not so comfortable. The cold wind with the raindrops destroyed his body, taking away his body temperature. He curled up on the plastic board. He used his thighs to protect his lower abdomen and his arms to hug his chest, trying his best to preserve his body heat. But even so, the more he could not resist the attack of the cold wind and rain, the worse his situation was. He was shivering from the cold, and his skin had turned purple because of the lack of blood flow. If this situation continued, he would not be able to hold on until they reached Big Melon Island. Charlotte pushed Akiko Tsukino. Get up! What? Although Akiko Tsukino asked, she still got up from Charlotte's arms. Charlotte quickly took off his clothes and pants, and then stuffed them into Erdemo's arms. Put it on. Boss, you can't. Erdemo did not dare to accept it. In his opinion, Charlotte was actually as cold as him. How could he wear Charlotte's clothes and let Charlotte feel cold? Don't talk nonsense, put it on. Charlotte's tone was very strict, and no one could resist. But Erdemutu wanted to say something but stopped. Believe me, I'm not cold at all. Having more or less clothes doesn't affect me at all, but it can save your life. Put it on. Then lean on my back," Charlotte said. Erdamu put on the clothes that Charlotte gave him, and then climbed to Charlotte's side, leaning on Charlotte's back. It was only when he leaned on Charlotte's back that he realized that Charlotte's body was very warm. He was not affected by the cold air at all. He warmed, not just his body, but his heart as well. His face was full of water stains, but it was unknown if there were any tears in them. Akiko Tsukino once again lay in Charlotte's arms, using his body for warmth. She found that although Charlotte had given all his clothes to Erdamu, Charlotte's body was still so warm, like a fully charged heater. However, it wasn't completely unaffected. There was only a triangular piece of cloth left on Charlotte's body. She lay in his arms, her mouth and nostrils facing his sensitive area, and the hot air from her nostrils directly pounced on that area. There was a place on the man's body that expanded and contracted when he was hot. Her hot air rolled over that place, and she watched as that place changed and became more and more obvious. Charlotte wanted to step back a little, but Erdamu was behind him, and he couldn't move at all. Akiko Tsukino seemed to have sensed Charlotte's thoughts, and a smile appeared on her lips, with a hint of teasing and teasing. Then, she deliberately lowered her chin. Charlotte immediately became nervous. He glared at Akiko Tsukino, hinting for her not to act recklessly. However, such a warning obviously didn't work. It would have been better if he hadn't glared at her, but when he glared at her, Akiko Tsukino actually opened her little mouth. "Boss," Erdamu suddenly said. Xia Lei shuddered inexplicably. "What? Boss, are you nervous?" Erdamu's voice was filled with curiosity. Charlotte hurriedly calmed himself down. "Do I look nervous?" "Maybe this damn weather hissed. I'm nervous too. That's normal." Erdamutu didn't notice anything wrong. He looked up at the cloudy sky and said with a sigh, "Boss, if I don't die this time, I'll marry a wife after I go back and let her give birth to 2 sons for me. I'll train them and let them follow you." "Don't say such discouraging words. You won't die. We won't die. We still have a lot of things to do. Pull yourself together," hissed. Charlotte hissed again. This time, the corner of his mouth was crooked. "Boss, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Erdamu asked. "No." "Yes, my stomach hurts a little," Charlotte said. Then, he reached out and twisted Akiko Tsukino's ear. Akiko Tsukino's head was lifted. At this moment, Erdamu looked back and saw half of Akiko Tsukino's face. "Akiko, help boss rub it." "Really, if I were a girl, I'd rub it for him," Erdamu said unhappily. "Well, count it on me." "Boss, where does your stomach hurt?" Akiko Tsukino looked serious. No, I'm fine." Charlotte really wanted to kick Erdamu into the sea, and then kick Akiko Tsukino into the sea. Just when Erdamu turned his head, Akiko Tsukino leaned down again, and this time, twisting his ear didn't work. "Boss, if we arrive at Dagwa Island, what are you going to do?" Erdamu asked. "Kill them." Charlotte crooked his mouth again. "That marine soldier died because of us. We have to seek justice for him." "Boss, are you hurting again?" Erdamu said. "Akiko, you rub it better." Akiko Tsukino's voice was very vague. Charlotte was speechless. He now began to regret that he didn't go to Akiko Tsukino's cabin last night, but this was not his fault, because Yu Zhenhai wanted to talk to him about life and national affairs. If he went to Akiko Tsukino's cabin last night and satisfied Akiko Tsukino's wish, Akiko Tsukino wouldn't use such an extreme way to tease him on such an occasion, right? The survival boat braved the wind and waves, and the story on the boat couldn't be finished. But in the end, because of nervousness, the advanced man didn't persist for long. Akiko Tsukino raised her head from his arms and looked at Charlotte with eager eyes. Her voice also had the unique humility and gentleness of a Japanese woman. "Boss, how was my massage? Does your stomach still hurt?" "Charlotte, Akiko Tsukino licked the corner of her mouth with her tongue. If your stomach still hurts, I can rub it for you again. No, 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 it doesn't hurt anymore. Charlotte shook his head like a rattle drum. Akiko Tsukino chuckled, and then lay in Charlotte's arms again. But this time, she was very quiet and didn't rub Charlotte's stomach. The survival boat quieted down, and the three people on the boat each had their own thoughts. Erdemo was fantasizing about what his wife looked like, Akiko Tsukino was thinking about something that made her shy, and Charlotte was thinking. Actually, there was nothing in his mind, it was still a blank after being washed. Not long after, a ray of light appeared in the eastern sky. The sky was about to brighten, and the rain had stopped. The sea breeze blew away the dark clouds, and a large blue sky was revealed. It was so blue that people didn't want to blink. Soon, a round of rising sun rose from the east. The sea was covered with golden waves, and the white clouds in the sky seemed to be plated with a layer of golden powder, becoming auspicious clouds that were driven by the gods. Charlotte looked at the multifunction watch on his wrist. After drifting for a whole night, the plastic board did not deviate from its direction, and the distance it traveled made him feel a little relieved. It was still 50 kilometers away from Dagwan Island. Looking into the distance, Charlotte suddenly stood up. There's a ship there. A ship is coming. Akiko Tsukino and Erdemo also climbed up from the plastic board and looked in the direction that Charlotte was pointing. In that direction, a missile frigate was sailing towards them. Under the golden sun, a red flag was fluttering in the wind. Blue sky, white clouds, silver warship, and red flag in the wind. It was a beautiful picture. It's our warship. We're saved. Erdemutu was so excited that he cried out. He jumped up and shouted, "We are here!" We splash. When Erdemutu's feet landed on the plastic board, it suddenly lost its balance and slumped into the sea. The three people on top of it suddenly slid into the sea. Erdemo, you idiot! Akiko Tsukino scolded. Charlotte took out a Viper pistol that was inserted in the triangular piece of cloth, and then shot it into the sky. Bang, bang, bang on the frigate. A Navy soldier looked in the direction of the gunshots with optical binoculars. He quickly found the plastic board floating in the sea. He was stunned for a moment, then turned around and ran to the bridge, shouting as he ran, "Report, I found them! I found them!" The bridge suddenly burst into cheers. The captain picked up the communicator, took a deep breath, and said, "Reporting to Chief Yu, we found them." Yu Zhenhai's voice came from the communicator, "Save them immediately now. If we lose them again this time, you'll wash my toilet." "Yes." The captain stood at attention and said. A few minutes later, an armed patrol boat sped towards the plastic planks floating in the sea. With the help of a Navy soldier, Charlotte and the other two climbed onto the armed patrol boat. A Navy soldier followed and put a blanket on him. He nodded and thanked, "Thank you, comrade. Are you from Dagwa Island?" "Yes, Mr. Xia, we came from Dagwa Island." The Navy soldier said, "We are carrying out Chief Yu's orders. It's great to find you." Charlotte said, "Have my goods arrived at Dagwa Island?" "What goods?" The Navy soldier looked confused. "Nothing, take us to Dagwa Island," Charlotte said. An ordinary Navy soldier obviously did not have the authority to know such a high-level secret, so there was no need for him to ask anything. The Navy soldier drove the armed patrol boat to the frigate. Charlotte's gaze moved to the direction of the Philippines, his eyes cold. Before the armed patrol boat returned to the frigate, Charlotte made a call with a satellite phone. "Yelena, check the U.S. military base in the Philippines for me immediately." "Check what?" Yelena's voice was heard. "Personnel attendance," Charlotte said. "Roger." Yelena hung up the phone. Chapter 1072. Big Melon Island. Bastards! Yu Zhenhai slammed his fist on the table. They dared to fire at us! When his fist fell, A teacup on the conference table suddenly jumped up and then smashed to the ground with a bang. White porcelain pieces and tea were scattered all over the floor, but no one cared about them. The conference room was filled with grief and indignation. After Charlotte told the Marines what had happened, everyone wanted to take a gun and fight with those murderers. This is simply an act of war. A Marine officer said angrily, "We should give them an eye for an eye." Yes, an eye for an eye. They will bleed twice as much as we did. A Marine officer gritted his teeth and said. After the emotion of grief and indignation, the conference room was ignited with anger. Human emotions were like this. First, they were angry, then they were furious, and then they were crazy. In the midst of a group of angry soldiers, Charlotte gradually calmed down. Starting a war was actually a very easy thing to do. But starting a war with the United States was a very crazy thing to do. War was not a fight in the boxing ring. It was the fate of a country and a people. It was the blood and lives of soldiers, and the broken homes of ordinary people. In the face of this, who could easily say war? What's more, the opponent of the war was the United States. No country in the world could win against the United States in a full-scale war. Russia couldn't and China couldn't. If a large country with a population of more than 1 billion was involved in a full-scale war, it would be a dark page in the history of the entire human race. The United States also saw through this, so they dared to provoke the Oriental Dragon who had just woken up. The strategy of the United States was actually very simple. Not only did they dare to provoke you, but they also dared to fight back. If they fought back, they would be involved in the war. Once you were involved in a full-scale war, your billions of people would have to eat. Just your mouth could drag you down. If you collapsed, there would be no opponent in this world that could threaten me. Anyway, I can get the benefits I want no matter what, so why wouldn't I suppress you? In fact, it was not only this time. The incident in Yugoslavia was also a bloody example. Brother Xia, what do you think? Yu Zhenhai said, "They killed our soldiers and almost killed you. We must demand an explanation from them. This justice must be sought." Mr. Xia, just tell me what you want to do. A naval officer said, "At most, I don't want this life." Fight them. An officer slammed the table. Quiet down, all of you. Let's listen to Brother Xia's opinion, said Yu Zhenhai. The conference room fell silent. Charlotte was silent for a while before saying, "Brother Yu, please report this to the military. We have been bullied and a young soldier has been sacrificed, but this is not an excuse for us to throw away the fate of a nation and a people. Whether to start a war or not, that's not something you and I can decide. This is a matter for the decision-makers." Charlotte's words were like a bucket of cold water on the heads of a large group of Marines. Some people were woken up by the water, but others were even more furious. "Mr. Xia, I thought you were a hot-blooded man, but you're actually a—" An officer stopped at this point. Charlotte was not angry. He said lightly, "I am actually a coward. Is that what you want to say?" The officer stared at Charlotte. His anger could not be quelled. Although he did not admit it, it was indeed what he wanted to say. Xiaolei said, "So far, the number of CIA agents and U.S. Special Forces soldiers who have died in my hands is probably more than 100. If I'm considered a coward, then what's the standard for not being a coward?" The officers in the room were silent. They were soldiers with courage, but no matter how brave they were only soldiers in a peaceful environment. Except for old generals like Yu Zhenhai, who had been on the battlefield to kill the enemy, not to mention hundreds of agents and special forces. Yu Zhenhai was also angry. He slammed the table and said, "Whoever dares to say that Brother Xia is a coward, get out of here immediately." Last year in the Russian tank biathlon, Brother Xia operated a ZTZ-100 main battle tank and killed 3 Japanese Type 10 tanks, and it was in front of all the participating countries. Who has the guts to do that? The officer who wanted to say that Charlotte was a coward was full of shame. He hesitated for a moment, then stood at attention and saluted Charlotte. "Mr. Xia, I'm sorry, Charlotte interrupted him. "It's okay, no need to apologize. I understand you. If even you don't have courage, then this country is finished. However, sometimes we still have to solve problems rationally. Impulsiveness is the devil. Mr. Xia, are we just going to let it go?" The officer looked like he was having a hard time holding it in. Charlotte said, "Of course not. Our soldiers will not die in vain, not to mention that I almost died in that helicopter. Not a single drop of their blood could be spilled. Every single debt they had to repay had to be accounted for, and they had to get it back with interest. However, you are you, and I am me. Leave this matter to me and my people." "Wait," Yu Zhenhai tentatively said, "Brother Xia, what do you mean by we are us and you are you? What do you mean?" Charlotte said, "What I mean is very clear. You do your thing and I will do mine. You are soldiers, representing the country and the people. Your every move will be put on the table. If you do something, it will be magnified infinitely. I only represent myself. What I do, I will bear the responsibility alone. If necessary, the country can refuse to recognize my identity and even put me on the wanted list. They can make me a scapegoat in any way they want." This was Charlotte's plan, the plan to exclude the army. The army was the weapon of the country. It didn't move, but once it moved, it would affect the whole country and the people. China was in a very critical period of development and couldn't fight a war at all. However, the Americans wanted China to get involved in the war. They tirelessly provoked the conflict between China and the neighboring countries, Vietnam, the Philippines, India, and so on. In every dispute, the United States was involved. The purpose of the United States was very obvious. It was to prevent the rise of China. For decades, China pursued the strategy of hiding its strength and biding its time for peaceful development. It had also made achievements that attracted the attention of the world. The more stable the development of China was, the more impatient the United States would be. Its means of suppression would be more and more forceful, more and more arrogant, until it achieved its goal. In this matter, if China's army fired at the American planes or warships, it would really fall into the Americans' trap. However, it was different when Xia Lei made a move. He only represented himself. If he did something, what could the Americans do? Put him on the wanted list? Send a killer to kill him? It didn't matter to Charlotte. The officers in the room finally understood Charlotte's plan. No one spoke, and the atmosphere became silent and oppressive. After a long silence, Yu Zhenhai broke the silence in the conference room. "Brother Xia, can you do it alone?" Charlotte smiled. "Didn't I say? I still have my helpers. I know your helpers. They are just a man and a woman. What can you do with just the three of you?" Yu Zhenhai said. Charlotte said, "Of course I have my plan. Brother Yu, you just need to give me a warehouse and then transport my goods to the warehouse." "Tell me your plan. I want to know," Yu Zhenhai said. Charlotte said, "Brother Yu, it's better if you don't know about this. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to lie when you face the investigation in the future." Yu Zhenhai was stunned. Charlotte smiled. "Brother Yu, you'd better report what happened last night and then follow the orders from above. As for me, I don't care." Yu Zhenhai was not stupid. If he still didn't understand Charlotte's words, then he should really go home and farm. He didn't say anything, but just nodded to Charlotte. Charlotte said, "That's good. From now on, I don't know you, and I've never been here." Yu Zhenhai said, "Dismissed. Don't leak a word about today's meeting. In addition, no one is allowed to interfere with Brother Xia's actions." "Yes." A deafening response came. Walking out of the conference room, Charlotte saw a blue sea with a group of seagulls flying in the blue sky and white clouds. Looking down, he saw an artificial island in front of him. There was a military camp, a training ground, a hangar and a warehouse. Although it was small, it had everything. Dozens of Navy soldiers were training on the training ground, sweating under the hot sun. Their meticulous attitude and rigorous style were awe-inspiring. There were 2 runways in the middle of the artificial island. 2 Un-20 large transport planes slid into the runway, then sprinted, rose from the ground, and flew away in the blink of an eye with a loud roar. It was these 2 Un-20 large transport planes that brought the express delivery of Rema Group to this artificial island. Charlotte glanced at the express delivery that was unloaded next to the hangar, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He went downstairs and then went to the hangar. Those soldiers really carried out Yu Zhenhai's order, and no one paid attention to him. However, their eyes were full of admiration when they looked at Charlotte. Charlotte came to the side of the goods, and Akiko, Tsukino and Erdemo, who were guarding there, came to greet him. "Boss, what did you talk with those soldiers? Do you want to do something big?" Erdemuda had a kind of impulse to get into action, eager to give it a try. Charlotte said, "I told them to stay put and watch our performance." Just the 3 of us?" Erdemo looked very surprised. Charlotte laughed and said, "To be precise, I'm going to perform alone. At best, you are just extras." Erdemo was speechless. Akiko Tsukino laughed. She didn't think she was an extras. If she was, she would be the most important female extras. Do, the satellite phone suddenly rang. Charlotte answered the phone. "It's me. Boss." Yelena's voice. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Do you know what happened?" "Of course. I've already found out what you asked me to find out." "So fast." Charlotte was a little surprised. The Russian intelligence agents are not to be trifled with. I paid a high price and got the information in 3 hours. Yelena's voice. "I just learned that the Americans shot down a helicopter, and I guess that you must be on that helicopter. After knowing about this, Angumi-kan and your 4 daughters are actually already preparing." Charlotte frowned. "What are they going to do?" "The information provided by the Russian intelligence agents is very detailed, including the identity of the Americans who shot down your helicopter. Those 2 guys are now having fun in a red light district. They are going to give the 2 Americans a special gift." Charlotte said, "Tell them to be careful and not to expose their identities. Also, Giovanna and the others rarely carry out this kind of mission. Take care of them." "Don't worry. It's just 2 scumbags. There won't be any problems. That's all. I'll contact you when I catch them." Yelena hung up. Charlotte put away the satellite phone. "Move things. We should also get to work." Chapter 1073. After a sleepless night, the wings of 4 Jinka drones and 1 Spectre drone were assembled. 3 modified air-to-air missiles and an Eagle Claw 12 anti-ship missile were also installed on the launcher of the Spectre drone. The assembled Spectre drone had a wingspan of 20 meters and a length of 15 meters. It was a behemoth. It looked like a devil ray. It used a turbofan engine developed by Rema Group. It had a thrust of 100 knots, which was 70 knots less than the turbofan engine of the F-35. However, its weight was only 1/3 of the F-35. Lighter weight meant faster flight speed and maneuverability, which also meant a larger load capacity. In addition, the weight of fuel carried by the Spectre drone was enough for it to cruise for 11,000 kilometers. Under full load, it could also reach 700 to 800 kilometers. All of the hardware and software on it were designed by Xia Lei, who had gathered the best of the best. This was equivalent to taking a step further on the basis of a lot of the most advanced technology in the world, constantly improving. How advanced was the Spectre drone? Aside from its ex-Mystic Gold's absolute stealth body, just the fact that it could mount a land-based anti-ship missile on its body was already a unique technology in the world. Other than it, No fighter or drone in the world could mount a land-based anti-ship missile on its body. The 3 Cleaving Force 12 air-to-air missiles on the Spectre drone could turn it into a fighter, and the modified Eagle Claw anti-ship missile could turn it into a bomber. It was a drone, but in terms of its combat ability, it was the most comprehensive multi-purpose fighter in the world. A full cruising range of 8,000 kilometers could allow it to take off from any Air Force base in the mainland of China and rush to the Southern Sea to fight. All the countries around China were within its combat radius. However, its soul, its core technology was still X-Mystic Gold. The body built with X-Mystic Gold had the ability to be absolutely invisible. No radar in the world could detect it. At the same time, it also gave the Spectre drone the ability to resist electronic attacks. Graphite bombs, electronic pulses, abductions, and other common electronic attack methods were useless against it. The turbofan engine built with it had powerful performance. It could even withstand a flight speed of 3 times the speed of sound. Although this speed was not the fastest aircraft made by humans, it was definitely the fastest in the world of fighter jet. Air-to-air missiles can fly at 4 times the speed of sound, but it is a behemoth with a wingspan of 20 meters. One could imagine the scene of a silver devil ray flying across the sky like a bolt of lightning. It would definitely be shocking. After Xia Lei completed the assembly and loading, he looked at the behemoth and the other 4 smaller Jinka drones in the hangar. He couldn't help but show a gratified smile. It didn't take long to build these 5 drones, but his preparation for this could be traced back to when he infiltrated Lockheed Martin Corporation alone. With his ability, studying and pondering for such a long time was already considered a very long time. "Boss, can this guy beat the American Bumblebee?" Erdamu asked. Charlotte smiled. "You're talking about the American aircraft carrier, right? Bumblebee? I'm afraid only the F-22 and F-35 can be his opponent. Bumblebee is not qualified yet." "This guy is so powerful? But it's just a drone," Akiko Tsukino said, looking very surprised. Charlotte said, "A war without human participation is the trend of future wars. I'm just walking at the forefront. A war without human participation is actually the most terrifying because both sides of the war can ignore the casualties and can ignore the consequences. Boss, the ghost drone is so powerful. If it is mass-produced and only needs a few hundred, won't we be able to defeat the United States?" Charlotte smiled. "Mass production of a few hundred? Do you know how much Mystic Gold my Rema Group has produced since the new material workshop started producing Mystic Gold?" Akiko Tsukino shook her head. "You know, I'm not interested in those things." Charlotte said, "Rema Group said that all the Mystic Gold they produced during this time is here, and they used up all the raw materials in stock. The raw materials for Mystic Gold X are very difficult to get, and the rare metals in it are provided by the country. They can't be bought outside at all. So in the situation you said, mass-producing hundreds of ghost drones is not realistic at all, at least for the current situation." Akiko Tsukino frowned. "In that case, isn't it still impossible to reverse China's air combat disadvantage?" "You're wrong. We only need 20 of these drones. My next step is to research and manufacture the first fighter belonging to Rema Group. It will consume more Mystic Gold X, but it will be more comprehensive and powerful. I estimate that 20 of these fighters will be enough. They are enough to strangle the air force of any country in the world. Lastly, the bomber. The bomber is made of Mystic Gold X, and its consumption of Mystic Gold X will be even greater, but I estimate that 2 will be enough." Xiaolei said. He actually had a blueprint in his mind. Rema Group's research on drones was only to lay the foundation for the future. Charlotte's ambitions were not on drones. It's fine if you don't build it, but if you want to build it, you need to build a fighter that no one else can catch up with. I understand, you want to use dozens of drones, fighter jets, and 2 bombers to form a super strong strategic air force. Once you complete it, Even the United States will not dare to act rashly. Akiko Tsukino said. Erdamu said with a smile, at that time, this strategic air force can fly wherever it wants, and the radar won't be able to find it. If it is equipped with a nuclear bomb, the deterrent force will be greater than the arrogant United States Navy. If the United States still dares to suppress China like it is now, then it will really be drunk. Akiko Tsukino's mind was imagining such a scene. In the blue sky and white clouds, dozens of silver drones and fighter jets accompanied two strategic bombers flying. That scene was shocking just thinking about it. Xia Lei sighed softly in his heart. It had taken him more than 3 months to build these 5 drones, and he had even used up all the raw materials. To build such a strategic air force, how could it be done without more than 10 years? But he did not have that long of a pause. 1/3 of the 3-year deadline given by the black-robed man had passed. He only had 2 years left. How could he complete such a huge project? Boss, what you are talking about should be something very far away. What about now? We only have 5 drones, but we're facing the United States 7th Fleet and the Philippines military base. We're no match for them at all. Tsukino Enko quickly snapped out of her reverie and faced reality. Charlotte said, we are indeed no match, but we are not facing an all-out war. It is just a conflict, and a conflict that is not officially recognized. Without the participation of China's military, this could only be a conflict. Even the United States did not dare to fight a real all-out war with China. China was a large country with a population of more than 1 billion, and it had the world's largest market. China was not Iraq, nor was it Syria. It was not a country that the United States could trample on if it wanted to. Even if the United States had an overwhelming military advantage, it would lose 800 of its own soldiers. Moreover, the United States was fighting a war that spanned across the eastern and western hemispheres. Supply lines were also a problem. Therefore, no matter what the outcome was, the United States could not escape the fate of decline and would lose its current status as an international leader. The European Union and Russia would replace it. This was a price that the United States could not afford to pay. In a situation where an all-out war is impossible, the Rema Group's Bramble and Ghost drones will have a place to play. The Americans are not as strong as they think. Their confidence is built on their advanced weapons. Once they lose this advantage, they will not dare to act rashly. And I want to shatter the Americans' confidence. I want them to know that they are actually very fragile. So, I do not want to defeat the United States 7th Fleet. I only need to defeat the fighter that they think is the most advanced. Charlotte's eyes flashed with a strange light. His target was the United States F-35 fighter, which was claimed to be the world's most advanced fighter. Do-do-do, the satellite phone suddenly rang. Charlotte answered the phone. It's me. Speak. Yelena's voice came from the satellite phone. Boss, they have been caught. Where are you now? Charlotte asked. Yelena said, we are in a fishing village. Don't worry, it is very safe here. How far is it from Dagwa Island? Not far, more than 100 kilometers. If you drive a speedboat, you can get there in 2 hours, Yelena said. Charlotte glanced at the multifunction watch on his wrist. Then he enlarged the satellite map on the multifunction watch and quickly found Yelena's location. He said, I see you. Prepare a fishing boat and set off in the direction of Dagwa Island at 6 o'clock in the evening. There is a small island about 130 kilometers from your current position. We will meet there. Wait, you want me to prepare a fishing boat, is it? Yelena said in surprise. You want to go to the Philippines? Charlotte said, yes, I will go to the Philippines after I get rid of those 2 guys. No, it is very dangerous. Yelena said. Charlotte said, I have my plan. Don't worry about it, just arrange it. Well, we will talk when we meet. I will go prepare now, see you then. Yelena hung up the phone. Charlotte put away the satellite phone and said, I am going to talk to Brother Yu and ask him to send a boat to take us to the island. He left the hangar. Erdemo said, Why does he want to go to the Philippines? Isn't it safer here? Akiko Tsukino shrugged and said, This is his style. Don't you know him? Erdemo said, How can I know him better than you? You even know the shape of his body. A sharp shuriken slipped out of Akiko Tsukino's sleeve. Her eyes were cold and terrible. Erdemo smiled and didn't look worried at all. Akiko, don't think that I don't know what you did on our boat last night. I just pretended not to know. If you dare to touch me, I promise that everyone in the Zodiac team will know about it. As a hunter of the Zodiac team, no movement in the jungle could escape his ears and eyes. How could Akiko Tsukino hide such a thing from him at such a close distance? Akiko Tsukino was silent for a moment. Well, sell me those sex toys you mentioned. 10,000 yuan. Erdemo and Akiko Tsukino high-fived and said, Deal. Chapter 1074. The sun was setting. An armed patrol boat appeared in the sea near the coast of the Philippines. The golden waves rolled forward, and a small island appeared between the sea and the sky. It looked like a crescent moon. That's the island. Charlotte pointed to the front. Comrade, just send us there. Okay, no problem. But Mr. Xia, you must be careful. This place is already under the control of the Philippine Navy. A Navy soldier driving the armed speedboat said. Charlotte patted the shoulder of the Navy soldier. Thank you. I'll be careful. A few minutes later, the armed speedboat arrived at the shallow waters of the island. Xia Lei carried a large equipment bag and jumped off the armored speedboat. He stepped on the waist-deep water and walked towards the beach on the island. Behind him, Akiko Tsukino and Erdemo followed closely, each carrying a large equipment bag. After dropping off the three people, the armed patrol boat quickly turned around and headed in the direction of Melon Island. Boss, how long are we going to stay here? Erdemo said while observing the situation on the island. Charlotte looked at the multifunction watch on his wrist and said, Yelena will pick us up at 8 o'clock. There is still an hour before that time. We will leave in an hour. Erdemo said, There may be a problem with this island. It would be best if we could leave as soon as possible. What did you find? Charlotte asked. I didn't find anything. I just have a bad feeling. Erdemo said. Charlotte had actually observed the island and used the ability of the combination of his left and right eye. The result of the investigation was that they didn't find anything. This island was an uninhabited island. However, he believed in Erdemo's intuition. Because Erdemo was a hunter of the Zodiac team, he was an expert in making traps and hunting. He had the keen intuition of a hunter. He couldn't see danger, but he could smell it. Let me take a look at the island, Akiko Tsukino said. Charlotte said, No, this island is about 5 square kilometers. It will take at least a day to search this island, and we will only stay on this island for an hour. So there's no need for that. We just need to take a look around here. Alright then, I'll go to the left. Akiko Tsukino said, Erdemo, you go to the right. We'll each advance 300 meters and then come back to meet up with boss. Erdemo nodded and searched to the right. Charlotte also started searching from the middle lane, but he had no intention of searching within 300 meters. After searching for about 100 meters, he returned to the beach. Erdemo, what's the situation on your side? Charlotte asked through the communicator. I haven't found anything yet, Erdemo replied. Akiko, what's the situation on your side? There's nothing special on my side. I didn't find any traces of human activity, but... Akiko Tsukino's voice sounded. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. But what? I found some traces that looked like the traces of a beast. They were big and obvious, Akiko Tsukino replied. Xia Lei immediately frowned. This small island can't possibly accommodate a large beast. Food and water are both problems. Tell me, what kind of beasts did you see? Horses. Akiko Tsukino's voice sounded. They seemed to be horse traces. Horses? How could there be horses on this island? Charlotte was confused. Yes, I'm sure it's horse traces. Akiko Tsukino's tone was very certain. Where does it extend to? To the center of this island. Akiko Tsukino's voice sounded. Charlotte's mind suddenly appeared with a satellite aerial view of this island. This was the satellite aerial view he had seen on his multifunction watch. This island was shaped like a steamed bun. The terrain in the middle was slightly higher, and the surrounding terrain was slightly lower. The highest terrain of the island and the lowest terrain of the island were only less than 200 meters above sea level. This small island was covered with extremely dense tropical forests. Even with his eyes, he couldn't completely see through them. What kind of secrets did this uninhabited island hold? The satellite image that appeared in his mind couldn't solve the problem because it was just a scaled-down image. The image that entered his eyes was just a blurry image. His brain couldn't magnify and clarify the originally blurry image. Charlotte opened his equipment bag and took out his hacking computer. The work that the multifunction watch couldn't do could be easily done by a hacking computer. After a few minutes, Charlotte connected to the North Star positioning system. The authority he had was military-level authority. He could use all the resources that the China military could use. A new satellite aerial view appeared on the hacking computer. The originally blurry and small image became big and clear. As his fingers moved, the situation of the island was displayed in front of him. He looked at the periphery of the island and slowly moved toward the center. Soon, the satellite's bird's-eye view stopped. It was the center of the island. In the dense forest, he saw the corner of a wooden building. It wasn't a normal house, but a treehouse built on a big tree. The treehouse was very simple, but very sturdy and durable. It couldn't have been built for a long time, and the wood looked very fresh. Then, he saw more treehouses in the center, as well as people. It was the Filipino military. There was a small military camp in the center of this island. The number of Filipino soldiers was about 50, and some of them were training in an open space. Next to the open space, there were more than a dozen short and strong horses, with wooden shelves for carrying goods on their backs. On the other side, more than a dozen Filipino soldiers were assisting some foreigners to install a radar. Next to the radar, there was a missile launcher with 2 Harpoon anti-ship missiles erected on the rack. Charlotte suddenly understood. This uninhabited island was close to Dagwa Island. The Philippines had installed radar and anti-aircraft missiles on this island. Obviously, they were targeting Dagwa Island. The Philippines had no military strength at all. The existing weapons and equipment were just obsolete or second-hand goods bought from Europe and the United States. But with the support of the Americans, they became bolder and more arrogant. They built a radar station and installed anti-ship missiles on this island. Their purpose was obviously to target the warships that China had deployed on Dagwa Island. Charlotte grabbed the communicator. Akiko Erdemo, come back. Stop searching. I haven't reached 500 meters yet. It was Akiko Tsukino's voice. Erdemo also said, Boss, why? There is a military base on this island. There are Filipinos and Americans, said Charlotte. I'm back. Erdemo and Akiko Tsukino answered almost at the same time. Charlotte opened the equipment bag and then assembled the Gale assault rifle in the equipment bag. After he assembled the Gale assault rifle, he glanced at the hacker's computer. At this time, there was a sudden movement at the military base in the center of the island. A team of more than a dozen people was leading the horses and moving toward this side. Xia Lei immediately frowned. This team was obviously a team that was transporting supplies. If they were moving this way, it meant that a ship would come to pick them up. But the problem now was that Akiko Tsukino and Erdemu would need at least 20 minutes to return here. If the ship that was to pick up the transport team happened to return during this time, the situation would become very bad. Akiko, Erdemo, there is a transport team that has left the military base and is moving toward the beach where we landed. You have to hurry. It's best to come back and meet me in 10 minutes. Charlotte urged. No problem. Erdemuta's voice carried a panting sound. He had obviously started running. Boss, let the armed patrol boat come back. It shouldn't have returned to Dagwa Island yet. It was Akiko Tsukino's voice. She was obviously running and talking at the same time, with the sound of panting. I need to confirm more information. You guys come back first, Charlotte said. He slid the satellite map with his finger and moved it to the sea between the Philippines and the small island. He almost didn't think about it and dismissed the idea of calling the unarmed patrol boat back. A frigate was coming this way. Charlotte zoomed in on the image of the frigate and then scanned it with his right eye. He quickly got the relevant information. This warship was the Philippine Navy's largest and most powerful frigate, the Rajamabon. This warship had a rather legendary history. It was a cannon-class frigate built by the United States during World War II. Later, the United States gave it to Japan. In Japan, it was called the Rising Sunday. After it was decommissioned in Japan, Japan gave it to the Philippines to let the Philippines fight against the Navy of China. This information was left in the written memory of the Philippine Navy that he read on the way here. There was a military base on the island and a transport team was coming this way. At sea, the most powerful frigate of the Philippines was also heading in this direction. At this time, he didn't dare to call for the armed patrol boat to return. There was also Yelena. She was probably driving a dinghy in this direction at this moment. These factors piled together to create a terrible situation. Coming to this island seemed to be a very rash and even stupid decision. However, Charlotte smiled. He took out the satellite phone and dialed Yelena's number. Yelena, where are you now? I'm still 30 kilometers away from the island you mentioned. I can get there in about half an hour, Yelena said. Okay, I'll wait for you on the north side of the island. Pay attention to the frigate of the Philippines. It is also sailing to this island, Charlotte said. Yelena's surprised voice sounded. Charlotte didn't give any explanation. He hung up the phone. Erdemo and Akiko Tsukino appeared from the woods on the left and right side. Boss! Erdemo looked worried. I heard your conversation with Yelena. Since you know that a frigate is sailing here, why did you ask Yelena and the others to come? We have to leave here, Akiko Tsukino said. Charlotte smiled and said, I'm here to fight. How can I fight without enemies? It's reasonable for me to hide from the UA, but if I hide from the Philippines, wouldn't that be too useless? Erdemo smiled bitterly. There is a military base on this island, and they want a frigate. We also have reinforcements. Charlotte's fingers tapped on the keyboard a few times, and a drone operation interface suddenly appeared on the screen of the hacker's computer. Chapter 1075. In the dense primeval forest, more than a dozen heavily armed Filipino soldiers and a dozen pack horses were following the footprints they had made before to the beach. There was originally no road in the forest, but if they continued to trample like this, it would take less than a month for the people and the pack horses to trample out a path. Hurry up, hurry up. It's going to be dark soon. Those things must be transported back to the base. The Americans said they are very important. A Filipino officer urged his team to speed up. Is it the American equipment used to deal with China's warships? A Filipino soldier asked. This is a military secret. Don't ask casually, the Filipino officer said. It must be. With the United States supporting us, China's warships are nothing, another Filipino soldier said with a hint of disdain in his mouth. This time, we will take Dagwa Island. The Filipino officer said, Let me tell you a secret. This time, the United States 7th Fleet will come from Malacca and then directly approach Dagwa Island. After that, it will be our turn. We want to occupy Dagwa Island. Captain, is this true? A Filipino soldier asked. Of course it is true. I stopped to listen to the two Americans talking. This time, with the support of the International Court of Justice, the United States intends to use force to force China to submit, the Filipino officer said. China will certainly not be willing to hand over the artificial island they built. That is a military base. The existence of Dagwa Island is like an unsinkable aircraft carrier. It has extremely important strategic interests for China. Will they be willing to give it up? A soldier said. As long as they don't give it up? For the Americans, Dagwa Island is like a fishbone stuck in their throat. The Americans will definitely want to pull it out. This time, with the support of the International Court of Justice, it will be very difficult for the Americans to find an excuse to make a move again if they miss this opportunity. Therefore, the UA will not give up this opportunity, the Filipino officer analyzed logically. So who will fire the first shot? A soldier asked. Of course, it will be us. The International Court of Justice has awarded Dagwa Island to us. China's troops stationed on that island are tantamount to invading our territory. We have the right to fire. If we fire, the United States 7th Fleet will intervene to help us. China's forces on that island are simply not enough. The Filipino officer seemed very excited. He seemed to be imagining the scene of the Philippine flag being planted on Dagwa Island. I understand. Once we start fighting, the Harpoon anti-ship missiles we hid on this island will act as an assassin. They will assassinate China's warships, right? Captain, you're smart. All right, stop talking. Hurry up, all of you better hurry up. The Filipino officer urged his men to pick up the pace. The man and the pack horse arrived at a relatively flat forest. About 500 meters ahead was the beach. The Filipino officer looked at the wristwatch on his hand and said, "We have to hurry. The warship that will deliver the goods is about to arrive." Captain, when will the U.S. 7th Fleet arrive? A Filipino soldier asked. The Filipino officer said, "The fleet will arrive in about a day, but the carrier-based aircraft on the aircraft carrier can fly over at any time. I'm guessing the commander of the 7th Fleet has already sent out a reconnaissance aircraft. China is doomed this time." Before he could finish his words, a bullet suddenly flew from the front and pierced his head with a puff. With a headshot, the Filipino officer fell to the ground. "There's an enemy!" Someone shouted in alarm. Bang, bang, bang! Bang, bang, bang! The frightened Filipino soldiers fired randomly. Bullets flew randomly in the forest, and fragments of leaves and tree trunks flew everywhere. More than a dozen pack horses were shocked and ran into the forest. "The enemy is..." Before a Filipino soldier could finish his sentence, a bullet flew from the side and knocked him to the ground. It was also a headshot. The other side did not make any gunshots, so it was difficult to determine where the bullet came from. Just as the Filipino soldier fell to the ground, another bullet flew from another direction and pierced the head of another Filipino soldier. "We're surrounded." A Filipino soldier turned and ran toward the center of the island. Puff! A bullet entered the back of his head and flew out of his right eye. His eyeball, along with blood and brain matter, sprayed forward, forming a cone-like shape. The remaining Filipino soldiers did not dare to continue fighting. One by one, they turned and ran toward the base in the center of the island. Puff, puff, one by one, the Filipino soldiers fell into a pool of blood. If they formed a line of defense, they might be able to resist for a while, but if they gave up fighting, only death awaited them, and they would die even faster. In 2 minutes, more than a dozen Filipino soldiers were left with only one. On a tree, Akiko Tsukino raised the Gale assault rifle in her hand, her finger on the trigger. In the scope of the Gale assault rifle, the back of the last Filipino soldier's head was shaking. But just as she was about to pull the trigger and shoot the last target, Charlotte's voice came from the communicator. "Don't kill him," Charlotte said. "Roger." Akiko Tsukino put away the Gale assault rifle in her hand, and then jumped down from the tree. Urtomo came from another direction. He made a 4 gesture to Akiko Tsukino. Akiko Tsukino raised the corner of her mouth, and then made a 5 gesture. In the battle just now, Urtomo killed 4 people, and Akiko Tsukino killed 5. This kind of sign language would appear after every battle in the Zodiac team. There were a total of 16 bodies in the woods, so Charlotte did not need to use sign language. He was the one who killed the most people. "Boss, why did you leave one alive?" When they met up with Charlotte, Akiko Tsukino said, "This island is very small, and the sound of gunfire is enough to reach the military base in the center of the island. There is no need for the survivor to go back and report. The people in the base know what is going on." Charlotte said, "I left him alive not to let him go back and report, but to let him lead the way for us. There are about 60 people in the military base in the center of the island. Can you guys do it?" Urtomo said, "I think there are not enough people." "I'm ready. Boss, walk behind me." Akiko Tsukino changed the magazine of her Gale assault rifle and then walked in the direction where the last Filipino soldier escaped. Urtomo and Akiko Tsukino walked side by side, but kept a distance of 10 meters. Charlotte carried the equipment on his back and then followed Urtomo and Akiko Tsukino to the center of the island. The traces left by the last Filipino soldier were very obvious. Not only were there footprints on the ground, but there were also intermittent bloodstains. The lucky guy was obviously injured. After walking along the traces on the ground for about 500 meters, Charlotte awakened the ability of his left and right eyes, and his ears also entered the state of discernment. With his body as the center, any movement within a radius of 100 meters, including sound, could not escape his detection. The trees blocked his line of sight, and he could not use X-ray vision to see the target, but his ears were a good supplement. His ears were affected by the sound of the wind, but his eyes were a very good supplement. He was actually a humanoid biological radar. As long as he calmed down and observed and discerned, even in the dense virgin forest, he could find hidden targets in advance. More blood stains suddenly appeared on the ground. After moving forward for a distance, Xiaolei suddenly stopped and whistled at the same time. Akiko Tsukino and Urtomo suddenly stopped. The two of them looked around and observed vigilantly, but they did not find anything. Charlotte's gaze was locked in one direction. The layers of trees blocked his line of sight, and he could not use the ability of his left and right eyes to carry out visual reconnaissance. However, his ears had already heard a very clear sound. It was the injured Filipino soldier speaking in Tagalog. "Not good. Not good. Someone has invaded here. The people in the transport team are all dead, only I'm left." These sounds entered Charlotte's ears, and then entered his brain. His brain then appeared the audio of the Tagalog teaching, as well as a dictionary. He had never deliberately learned the Filipino language, but his brain deliberately installed the tools to learn this language. He heard an unfamiliar language, and his brain translated it almost without any delay. The previous situation was the same. The dialogue between the Filipino officer and his men was translated almost without delay by his brain, and the accuracy reached 95%. This was a miracle that belonged to him alone. Charlotte raised his left hand, then put up a finger, and pointed it in the direction of the injured Filipino soldier. Akiko Tsukino and Urtomo nodded, then surrounded him from both sides. The injured Filipino soldier was still talking to someone. "A lot of people. At least 20. They surrounded us and ambushed us. They must be China soldiers." Speaking of this, he suddenly looked in the direction from which he came. A young man from China appeared in his field of vision. The communicator in his hand suddenly fell to the ground, and he hurriedly grabbed the AK-47 rifle beside him. Just as his hand grabbed the handle of the AK-47 rifle, a military knife suddenly appeared from behind him and quietly slashed across his neck. The Filipino soldier subconsciously covered his throat, and a strange sound came from his throat. Scarlet blood rushed out from between his fingers, and he couldn't stop it. He wanted to turn around to see who did such a cruel thing to him, but he didn't even have the strength to look back. 3 seconds later, he lost blood to his brain, and his eyes went black as he fell to the ground. Erdemute gestured a 5 with his hand. Charlotte suddenly said, "They're here." He listened carefully, then said, "About 30 people, about 50 meters away from us." "Boss, how can you be so sure?" Erdemute looked surprised. "I'll tell you when we get back, now it's your turn," Charlotte said. Erdemute then took off his equipment bag and took out a few anti-infantry bouncing mines from it. These landmines were very small, but once they were touched, the trigger would jump from the ground and explode at a height of 0.5 meters. Although these landmines were very small, their lethality was far greater than ordinary infantry landmines. Erdemute's speed of laying the landmines was very fast, and the location he chose was the most likely route for reinforcements from the military base. Charlotte and Akiko Tsukino each found a sniping point and were ready for battle. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.